measure it flat, it contradicts that. I'm spitting flat facts and that. And I know you don't like that. Google Maps is flat, it presents elevation profiles like that. I'm a spitting flat earth king. Sentence has a ring, doing my own thing. If earth was a big roast chicken, factually finger licking chicken, we just got the measurements missing. I'm spitting eggs and begs, begging the question lesson. I've said it before, time after time. I'm the spitting flat earth king of rhyme.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere. There's also coffee, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout of thanks and appreciation to Smith Tools and Purchase, Level Plain Poem, Carlton James, Survive the Spin, Effie Patriot, Thomas van der Zander, Measured Flat, Tiers Morgan, Mitch Kennedy, Rod, The Name's Burley, JMails24, Unimento, Iron26, Retro Bill, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Rob W, Del West Watson, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Texas Mike, Chow Yun Cat, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Links to Patreon are below this video. But with that, I'm going to hand across to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
Going, right?
You what? Sorry, I just sat down.
I'm saying they could very easily, if they want dialogue, come here. You're here every day, right? Same hour, same bat time, same bat channel.
Yeah. Absolutely, Neil. Yeah, the going over to a server where the guests, after talking to me, after taking up my time, decide that they want to start a little hate campaign against me. You're like, the accurate description of them being like that ex-wife that's at the end of the street with a set of binoculars, like, criminally creepy. These people are more than content to go and lie to their authorities, lie to everybody around them, create discourse and create accusations. Why? Well, because they've had their feelings hurt for being pointed out as dweebs and having the reality of, yeah, someone would knock you out if you talk to them like this in person. You realise that, right? All right, you're inciting hatred. No. What you're doing is confirming your dweeby stereotype by calling foul. Yeah, you don't like that you've been called out for being a dweeb and the reality of dweeb-like behaviour in society. Like, the fact that you've deluded yourself into believing that the way that you behave as a complete scumbag with a fake name online is how people get away with behaving in society. You're wrong. In some instances, these people would be criminally prosecuted for their behaviour. Like, for their stalking and harassment. These people should be, in some instances, criminally prosecuted. Now, my very base analogy of, well, you'd get a broken nose in high school for this, stands true. But it's, as is always the case with dweebs, yeah, suddenly you've got to make the person who's pointing out how irritating you are the problem. Like, okay, yeah, that's standard fare with dweebs. Yeah, all right, so suddenly you're a victim. Are you a victim? Oh. Yeah, but you will lie to authorities, lie to everyone around you, manipulate circumstances, make them seem like you are justifiable in claiming to be a victim. But that's all they are. Victims. Now, that is the main problem, right? What are we dealing with? Victims. So we should extend our sympathies to them. But by the same token, in terms of actually proactively interacting with these people, the juice is not worth the squeeze.
Yeah. Or you got All I got is people sending me messages. Hey, his daughter's in earshot, and he's saying things like unfuckable. This is disgusting. And he used the term rape to me. Listen, if you're gonna ignore the hypothetical, then why do we even bother? You could turn around and say you've been indoctrinated by someone who doesn't understand what Coriolis is. Just the fact that you laugh when you say conservation of angular momentum. Those of us who actually understand science are laughing at you.
Yeah, so this is the problem. So their cognitive dissonance when it comes to having two separate reference frames for an alleged Coriolis effect we don't experience has led them to interweave me and something to do with my daughters into it. Again, let's just say this on camera because the more time elapses, the more people support me in this endeavour, right? If you did that in reality, the person you did that to would be tempted to beat the living shit out of you. Like, you have got a problem with having two reference frames. Conservation of angular momentum. What's that? My daughters, bang! You just get a broken fucking nose. That's why the juice is not worth the squeeze. That's a hypothetical explanation of how these kids would be treated in high school when they pissed the big kid off by involving something that isn't to do with them. It's like, why are you now talking about my family? Because you want to tell me I'm wrong about having two reference frames on an Earth described as a flat plane and non-inertial would need drift in a second reference frame. But what the conservation of... Don't want to hear it, right? I'm sick of your delusions. We've said, go away. We don't want you anymore. But you're here telling us that we need to listen to this shit. And it's getting tiresome. And not only is it getting tiresome, you're now starting to mention people's families, their kids, their loved ones. Like, yeah, this is justified reason for people to get very upset with you. Now, if you don't like the metaphor of getting a broken nose for that, tough luck. Not inciting hatred and pointing out what scum you are. In some cases, criminally scummy in how you behave. Stalker-like, with endless harassment and demands of what we need to give you. Like explanations for argument. Why are you demanding anything of anybody, you bunch of little dweebs? What's that? You've heard me call you what you are, dweebs. So now you need to go out and have my channel off me? Suggest I'm inciting hatred? I'm not inciting. I'm telling you to go away. Calling you a dweeb. Telling you to get lost. And what's your reaction? Oh, well, no. This man's inciting hatred. He needs his income stream ending. Like, you people are monsters. And it will reach the point where your crumbling, sad religion falls about while you make your life a misery for yourselves. And the system will punish you. You know, it's a sad state of affairs when the system you're defending with these actions, making it personal about some other individual, me, that you want to make into a monster, I'm not. But what will happen to you is you will end up taking this too far. You will end up being criminally prosecuted. People who harass and stalk and pester and demand from others eventually they get prosecuted. It's not acceptable societally. Yeah, it's called, there's a term for it, being antisocial. Yeah, there's laws against it. Now, again, like I say, you can try and suggest, no, Nathan's described breaking someone's nose. Yeah, talk about man's daughters. Expect pain. That's how the world is. It's like, what, are you going to pretend because there's an internet that's protected you, that people don't get their noses broken out in the real world? People fight. Men fight. That's how it happens. Yes, often they can't justify their fighting and they get in trouble. And you, the little dweeb that can't fight, will weaponise that. This man's inciting hatred. This man is inciting violence. You're like, no, we've got an entire entertainment business that's been built on glorifying violence. This system likes violence. And it was bewildering to me why at first people were lifting me up on their shoulders while I'm making metaphors of a violent nature. Put yourself on mute. Ew, for fuck's sake, you're just watching your line dance while I'm looking down the lens of my camera.
I didn't know I was off mute. Sorry.
Just pay attention. People have praised me for describing the violence in real life that you'd face for the behaviour. Yeah? Eventually, someone gets sick of the guy who's watching his daughters through their window with binoculars. Eventually that person has his ass dragged through his own car window and his head stamped on. Yeah, that's what happens eventually to that person. Now you might go, I don't like that, when it's directed at you. You're the one who's the person in the car with the binoculars. You creepy bunch of criminal harassing stalkers. That's what you are. Now, you don't like that we are putting you in the position of ex-wife. We've gone, we want to divorce ourselves from you. We don't want you around us anymore. You are unpleasant. Yeah? And you make us feel on edge, threatened. Why does someone describe violence? Why can I do it so casually with a smile? Well, because that is how people who are threatened react. That's how they react. Now, you want to go, well, look, he's being violent. You're like, yeah, that's how people react to you. Now, you want to weaponise the bloody metaphor of me describing. You've got no introspection. You're not going, oh, right. So if I sit at the end of your street with binoculars looking at your kids through their window and whispering to you on the phone, you don't think that somebody wouldn't praise, clap and probably jump in with a boot when you get dragged out your own car window? No, they will. They'll cheer for the demise of the people like that. Societally, you, the dweebs, the heliocentric dweebs, the very small minority of people that oppose us with their adenoids, you are borderline criminal in your behaviour. You're on a tightrope that you don't even realise you're walking. And it will result, not in metaphors of people breaking your nose, but the chances are you being in some dusty old cell in trouble for your criminal stalking and harassment. Society doesn't like you, and they don't behave like you. Look around you. The people who are around you are not behaving like you are. This little minority of dweebs. And what's the real telling thing that they want to discuss? Well, their religious belief. In this case, they're into waving. Literally, my kids with Coriolis effect. You sad little dweebs. It's gone beyond you being just a bit boring with your bad breath and everybody around you finding you very, very tedious, to you wanting to act like criminal stalkers and harass people in a way that is antisocial so that you can demand they address your cognitive dissonance about fucking reference frames? Have a word. Now, you already were the dweebs of society. People generally just ignored you, overlooked you. You were invisible to the general public. But when they start looking at you like the woman that you think you can wolf whistle at because you've sat with the cool kids, they sneer at you. Yeah? Well, what's that by metaphor? Well, societally, there's actual punishments, not metaphorical broken noses, but prosecutions. Stalkers and people who harass and behave in an antisocial manner, they eventually have trouble. Find them. The system's set up for it. You'll be made the monsters that you want to portray us to be when we describe by metaphor how the reaction to your behaviour will end up putting it into a metaphor about how you'd have your head dunked down the bog in high school by the big kid that got sick of you because you're annoying his girlfriend and she's moaning about you all the time, about the dweeb. That's what you are. People around us are dweebs. Now, the society that you find yourself, they love a witch hunt. They love to turn people into monsters. Now, this is, believe me, my love being expressed to my opponent. So pay attention. The world will turn you into a monster and hunt you down. So get a grip. Now, us here on Flat Earth Debate specifically, there's a load of stupid numpty Flat Earth conspiratards that you can peck at that will love pecking back. But we've gone, no, we've had enough over here where we know it's flat, where we know you need it to be flat. There's no longer any argument. So the nagging stops. We are literally divorcing ourselves from you. So henpecking us will eventually lead to you becoming a monster that society absolutely loves to hunt. Do you want to be that? Wouldn't you prefer to be the invisible dweeb? Wouldn't you prefer that people weren't looking at you at all, rather than looking at you and sneering? This is the beginning. Me describing you getting a broken fucking nose is the start. It's the warning signs. Now, if you want to make me into that monster, I'll be that martyr. It's water off a duck's back after 10 years of abuse, of people telling me I need my nuts cut off and I need to be forced off tall buildings and my kids should be taken away. I've heard it all before, but I'm now speaking back to the people who are currently doing it. and going, you want to be a monster? I assure you will not fare like I fared. I've got very thick skin. Yeah? I'm a tough old goat in that regard. As I say, it is water off a duck's back. But you frail bunch of weak little beaters, you will not cope with society making you a monster. I assure you, it will be your demise. So heed these words. They are said out of love. Don't become the monster, because you get hunted. People love a witch hunt.
You get it all out?
There's nothing to get out. I have these feelings for the last 6 months, probably a year. I can't put a timeline on it. For a period of time, I've gone, what is this worth? When I said the juice isn't worth the squeeze, I couldn't look it up. I tried to earlier, find what the rest of the saying is. It's not worth the rub. I'm sure there must be another part to that, but I can't find it. The best I could come up with was a comparable saying. The juice is not worth the squeeze, right? Now, I said this yesterday. I watch a lot of Tale of the Fiend, and inadvertently I watch it for amusement, right? Because it amuses me how people behave when they're dating each other and younger than I. I can look at it and think back on times and go, that's amusing, right? Because I was a bad boy back then, right? I was the guy that he's describing that these women want to have bedroom fun with, but don't want to. They want to get commitment out of these guys, but they don't want to give them commitment. I was trying to explain that yesterday. I just couldn't explain it. And I gave an example of where I did it, right? No talk, just sex. Yeah, that's an example of that. Well, in the same way, these metaphors are often comparable in terms of how the people around us that have debated with us for 10 years are now getting treated by us. You sort of hit it almost squarely on the head, Neil, when you said that these people couldn't stand it when we said, we don't need you anymore, we don't really want you anymore. That drove them up the wall. You're like, yeah, you're like the starting hints of becoming the divorced wife. But now we're at the tail end of it, and you're like, no, now you're the divorced wife sat at the end of the street with binoculars, phoning the police saying that you're getting beaten up. I mean, come on, you really want to be these people? Like I said earlier, they'll become the monsters, and society's already structured to hate them, right? And they've got even more reason to when they're creepy little dweebs. People love that kind of monster, don't they?
Yep, and you're 100% right.
We fare well, you and I, Neil, specifically, right? Because we've had our brushes with the law. We've exercised our criminal intent when we were much, much younger. Therefore, we are not battle-hardened, but more aware of consequences in this regard. So when it comes to illegitimate claims, right? People saying you've done stuff that you haven't, it's met with an eye roll. Because beyond truth, there's nothing that's going to occur because somebody says you've done something or are something. You need to prove that you are. Now, when you actually are that criminal, there's a fair chance that you'll get caught and get punished. Yeah? Would you agree?
Yep.
Therefore, when you have something falsely accused of you, well, you'll immediately go, no. You don't care too much because you're like, well, it's not going to be shown to be true, so who gives a shit? It's water off a duck's back. You concern yourself when it is true, right? Now, for the people who are opposing us currently, that is going to be their downfall because they haven't necessarily pushed the boundaries and the limitations of what is legally and societally acceptable. Instead, they found an outlet for their masked self that they never had the confidence to express, right? Now, given limitations and lack of consequences, that just gets worse and worse and worse over time. Like, yeah, but you are, these people who oppose us, the people you communicate with, Neil, more often than I, because I've figured ways of detaching myself from them so that they can't get their greasy little, dirty little, dweeby little hooks into me, right? But they will find themselves on the end of consequences. Now, I'm thinking, why am I going through this, right? It's because in my mind, I want to be like the good Christians describe others should be, right? Which is to say, love thy neighbour, right? try and express things that are positive for them. Not I hate you and want to show that you're wrong, but I want to demonstrate to you how the path that you are on will lead to self-destruction. And therefore, I can only be considered to be warning them of the perils. Now, it's like that Christian who talks about partying to a certain extent, but with much less grandiose endeavours being the reason behind my motivation. So if I say, well, I've got in trouble, yeah, I've been that guy, right? Don't be that guy. Not because I'm talking about the guy that goes out and gets all the girls and has all the parties, but the guy that gets in trouble. The guy that's being asked questions on tape. You know what I mean? Right? And if you are unprepared for that, like I was when I was in my teenage years, it's very scary. And there are consequences. But water off a duck's back for the people who are trying to make me the monster that they haven't realised they are. It's all well and good me laughing about the monsters that I face in my closet. Every man's capable of true evil. And knowing what that evil is the, the wardship that you can keep over it. But the people we deal with, I'm sincere when I describe how they have not faced their own demons. They want to lock them up in a cupboard and walk the hell away. And in many ways, the religious belief that they have endeavoured to defend and interwoven with making me a monster is giving them a justifiable reason to lock them in the closet and turn their back on them. You're like, but here you are on the internet, becoming those monsters, and you haven't even recognised it. Yeah? These people who cry foul, it's the irony of, don't bully me, you've got bad teeth and bad skin. What, you want to bully me? Don't become the monster you're fighting against, especially if the monster you're fighting against is an imaginary monster. And I want to be good to these people as I depart from them in divorce and go, don't become a monster. Don't sit at the end of the drive with binoculars, because society doesn't like the person you're sat outside their house of, which isn't mine. They don't like you either. Now, they might not have the bottle to come out and knock on your door or drag you through the window, but they definitely don't like you. Now, you being blinkered, the dweebs, the same ones that have had their heads stunk down the toilets and their noses broken, you are becoming societally unliked because of your access to the internet. Now, far be it for me to harp on indefinitely about my perceived opponents in this regard. It's a lot of P's. But I want to express these feelings of mine about what will happen to these people through love. Right, as I depart their company. These people are toxic. So as I depart their company, I say, look, don't become a monster. If you go put a mirror up to what you're doing and go, holy shit, then there's something very wrong with you. Now, I'm not just saying that for dramatic effect. Sincerely, society does not like that. And they are all the more willing to go on a witch hunt and punish. They're looking for all new ways to punish people in modern society. You'd be astonished. Now, if you're some dweeby geek that would get his head kicked in just for looking wrong way at another man's woman, what do you think they're going to do when you're demonstrating antisocial behaviour? It will not be pleasant. Like I say, me, Neil, a lot of the people around us are battle-hardened. We're still here because we haven't succumbed to the egregious demonstrations of dweebiness from our perceived to be oh-so-grand opponents on the internet. Me, I'm genuinely battle-hardened from a society that I've started to recognise and know the dangers of. But you dweebs don't. But you'll find out right quick, I assure you. And it will not be pleasant. It won't be a fun ending. That's the thing that I also concern myself with. Are a lot of our opponents being made scapegoats? Because there are people who lean into the heliocentric deception of being on a ball surface that's measured flat for their own ends, for their own gains, sometimes financial. Now, those people aren't going to allow any sort of society to scowl upon them, so they need scapegoats. And you think, well, given that we are definitely exposing the cracks to the point where it's no longer even relevant to debate the bloody subject, there's a good chance that there's a society around them gearing up to make them the monsters in this scenario, the heliocentric monsters that have deceived them. I mean, there might be a couple of priests that are now getting on a bit in their years, but for the most part, who's replacing them? Well, you are. And what are you? Well, societally, you're shitbags. You're the biggest monsters out there in terms of how you behave. And you believe incorrectly, and I've even affirmed this and validated this belief, that society tolerates you being complete scum to a certain group of individuals who call themselves flat earthers. And it is not true. The society that I actually know and love does not value that. They do value chasing individual monsters, though, if they perceive that they've been wronged, or society at large has been wronged. Well, heliocentrism's showing those cracks. And the people who've benefited from it, not you, your new money, if you're making your money on YouTube especially, but you'll be the scapegoats that they want. If this all collapses, you're a pawn. I described you as this yesterday. Me too, I've recognised my position on the chessboard, but you haven't. Well, that's a very dangerous place to be. I'm done.
So is it considered stalking if you're like going through some stuff and there's like 40 messages, not one response from the other person, just 40 messages? That's stalking, right?
Well, it's like the same would be said in the old 80s movies where you see the battered husband sat in the police cell describing how the creepy bunny boilers left 50 bloody messages on his answering machine with no reply to any of them, getting ever more creepy as the messages play out. Well, now in social media terms, it's instant messages, private messages, these creepy invites that you keep getting. You're like, why are you being invited to dinner to people that you're describing as dweebs and telling to get lost? It's just creepy. It's just stalking, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very weird, very freaking weird. Because I'm just going
Creepy.
through and I'm looking, I'm like, wow, 40 messages. And I didn't respond to any. Doesn't, like, on the third one, maybe a stop? Like the person's not interested?
Oh, I've got that all down the side of Discord. Endless people that I've never interacted with personally, with message after message after message to me. They just keep sending them. You know, like, do you remember me saying I don't interact with Discord? When I say that, that means I literally only use Discord as a gateway. Now, there might be an absolute necessity to get in touch with someone personally, like getting in touch with Riggs to get his links to put in the shows that we've done on his Discord server. That's a necessity to go in and go, bloody hell, how do I actually get into the messaging service? But the messaging service leaves numbers all the way down the side of Discord telling me how many times people, and I don't interact with any of them, are trying to get hold of me. And when you're like, wow, this is getting into triple figures now, that's creepy. Creepy as frig.
Yeah, very. And like I said, I read some of them for entertainment, but I'm not even going to do that anymore because then it just gets them excited, like you want to be around them and always responding to me. No. It's all over now.
Well, it's narcissistic in terms of how these people behave, so it's back to basics. This is how I got my conspiratorial. Maybe I'm going to get shouted at by someone in a minute and tarnishing the good name of flat earth measurements with pseudoscience of the psychology of psychopathy. But nevertheless, when you're talking about narcissists, what they'll do is they'll try and get your attention so they can hoover up all of your energy. And if they don't get it, they'll try and triangulate others to try and get into your vicinity. So there's only one rule that needs to be applied when you're actually dealing with people like this. And Thomas Sheridan, I don't know if he's the one who coined this frame, but it's certainly the phrase that I got from him initially. No contact ever again. You've got to figure out who the players are, the flying monkeys who are being used by these individuals to triangulate you, and the actual attention that they're trying to draw from you and the reasons why they're trying to draw it from you, and how to get away from these people completely. If you don't direct any of your energy towards them, then they're not getting anything back. Eventually they will, even if it's after triple-digit messages, get the point. They're not getting anything back from you. And the only way to achieve that is no contact ever again. That's to say, you divorce that bitch that won't stop nagging you and demanding that you do things and screaming about how you're not doing things. Yeah, that bitch, once you've turned your back on her, you have no contact with her ever again. You don't communicate with her. You don't talk to her. You don't be with her. Now, obviously, I appreciate that in relationship analogies, you've got to point out that, oh no, sometimes you've got tied to this person in inexplicable ways like children. You're like, well, we're not attached to these people, these monsters, these stalkers, these creepy dweebs, where we're trying to divorce ourselves from them. I know, you can be told to get lost. If you don't take the hint, I can metaphor how you'll get a broken nose in society if you just won't leave somebody alone. Yeah, eventually they get sick of you and they do something to you to get rid of you. Right? Now, I get that you want to make them the monster. That might be your narcissistic endeavour. If I can just get this guy to try and break my nose, I can call the police on him. Go and look at someone like, what's his name? Mr. Sensible. Did exactly the same thing. Tried to criminalise me and get the police to come round. You're like, why? Because you feel threatened after it's pointed out what a scumbag you are. You'll weaponise the person's reaction and call the police on them. You're like, yeah, that's dweeb behaviour though, isn't it? Yeah? Nag, 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 nag. Oh, he's got aggressive. Police. You're like, yeah, dweebs. Yeah? Again, society doesn't like that guy or girl that does that. Far from it.
No, they're actually hated by society.
Yep. Well, that's what I'm saying. They'll turn them into monsters for that. But they've got so little introspection that even when I'm saying, oh, you'll get a broken nose for this in society, they're like, he's saying broken nose, police, he made a metaphor about me getting beaten up. Why would he do that? Is the police's question. Why would he suggest in metaphor that you'd end up with a broken nose? Was he justified? Did everybody go and condemn him and jump on him and tell him that he needed arresting? No, they lifted him up on their shoulders and praised him. Why? Well, because these are all the people that you stalk. They're your victims. So when someone turns around and says, or let's put it back into the metaphor, when someone beats the living shit out of you, they praise you. The neighbour that's watched you park with the binoculars and sneered at them, going, why is he parked outside my house again? When eventually someone gets sick of you and drags you through your own car window, they're not calling the police on the person dragging you out your window. They're cheering. Now, like I say, I was shocked when I got that reaction when I was told how wonderful it was to metaphorically describe how you dweebs would get treated in society. But that's the case. It was very eye-opening. Why? Well, because you are monsters. And the people around me are like, yeah, they deserve that. They're monsters. And we hate them. Now, like I say, I'm reaching out through love and saying, you want to be that person? Fine, you'll find out the hard way. Fuck around and find out.
How are you?
Morning.
I'm all right. Overworked, underpaid, bit under the weather. I've got my antibiotics in my system. Pain in my jaws going away. Got some sleep last night. Reasonably happy. It's the weekend. I don't normally mention it, but in this instance, I've worked through being a bit ill. I did the same thing last week. Although, was it last week I had a couple of days off? I can't remember now. But yeah, I've been under the weather for a little while, but still plodding through doing the shows because I love them. And yeah, it's just, yeah, I'm all right. Should have just said okay, shouldn't I? I'm all right, Neil. How are you?
Everything is roses.
Feeling dweeby over here.
Did you take offence? Do you consider yourself a dweeb?
No. I think it's pretty spot on what you were saying in the pre-show.
Okay, I'll reiterate it in as concise a way as I can, so I'm not saying the same thing over again, right? To the audience, my appeal through love is to our opponents that eventually they are going to become more than just the creepy stalker ex-wife with the binoculars at the end of the driveway or in front of someone else's house that's getting irritated with them, right? Eventually it'll result in a level of antisocial behaviour that will end up getting them in trouble. And for what? So they can argue with us at their demands for Coriolis reference frames that are conserving momentum. You're like, no, you're involving things like my daughters or my wife or my family in an argument we've said we no longer want to have with you. Now, my warning was to say, society doesn't like the people you are. Now, you've managed to find an outlet for that particular type of monster on the internet. Something that you'd normally keep masked up, but anonymity, if I could say it, has offered you the opportunity to become that monster, but without any introspection, without any forethought about what the consequences might be. You've just braced against us and are attempting, unjustifiably, to make us into monsters while we're telling you to go away. Now, no matter metaphors about having your noses broken and your heads cracked will ever result in you being able to make me into the monster that you're scared of becoming if you had any introspection. And scared you should be. The problem is that you're not. And that will run out. That luck that the internet's afforded you will run out eventually and end in consequences. Because a lot of what our former, let's get it correct in tense terms, opponents find themselves doing is being criminally antisocial. You're like, okay, society loves a witch hunt, and they will be quick to make you into those monsters. I further speculated that the people who have benefited from heliocentric deception will need monsters for the public to chase after. And there's a good chance that these dweebs have been assigned that little scapegoat task here on YouTube. Now, again, without any introspection, you're not even going to know what's creeping up on you. And if I'm correct about the demise of heliocentrism, it doesn't matter if it's now or 100 years from now. My words should be heeded in terms of the people who oppose what we very specifically in the here and now do on Flat Earth debate. When we say it's no big deal, you still have to pay your mortgage tomorrow, it's just measured flat, that should be praised. Now, if you think that you need to end me because I've described metaphorically how you'd have your teeth knocked out for bringing up my kids, if we were in a high school setting, you'd have your head dunked down the toilet, you can try and turn me into the monster. Look, he's inciting violence. But all that is a demonstration of the dweeby, antisocial criminal activity that our opponents will fall into right quick, just because they need us and demand that we listen to their explanations about reference frames. Like, get a grip. It does not end well for you. Yeah, society will hate you. Now, that is the only warning I'm going to give. It's been given out of love. My name's Nathan Oakley. I'm a flat earther. This is me expressing my love for my former opponents on the bald belief side of a debate that should have never existed. Society will despise you and hate you quicker than you can blink an eye if you continue to act in an antisocial way. And while, for a while, I have even propped up the notion that we as flat earthers are deemed acceptably ridiculable by society, that is absolutely not the case. And if it was the case for flat earthers, I draw the line here for us. That's Flat Earth Debate. Me, Nathan Oakley. And there's going to be plenty of people who have already seen put me on their shoulders for expressing by metaphor the violence in society you would all face if you behaved in that way without your brave pills afforded you by the internet interactions that you have now unmasked yourselves with. So take this as the only warning that'll come from me. It's a dark road that you, the monsters you've become on the globe side of this non-discussion, are. So take it as a warning, take it as coming from my heart, as my love for my neighbour, in this case an opponent. I don't want to feel the hatred that I've felt in the past through my own ignorance of the subject of Flat Earth. I feel enlightened, as big-headed as that may sound, to move on and divorce myself from people who still want to discuss it is my ambition, and I'm being praised for it, even when expressing it through violent metaphor. That's with good reason. It's because the people who are lifting me up on their shoulders for these descriptions see themselves as your victims also. Now, what does that mean? It means that you're leaving victims in your wake as you fight for having reference frames. I mean, bloody hell, it couldn't be over a woman, you bunch of dweebs. It had to be over some boring adenoidal crap that you want to get yourself into societal danger over. You're like, really? Because you demand that I understand how you derive an angle from a curve? Get a grip. Bloody hellfire. That's it. That was as concise I could make it the second time around.
That's pretty good. I don't think you really missed anything because you addressed the way that at the present moment it seems okay to be this horrible to us. Does not mean it will always be the case. Like I said, if you don't have introspection, you're never going to realize that until it's too late.
Yeah, and we discussed this yesterday. This is the reason this has been sparked in my emotions or brain or cognition or whatever, is because there's people on the sidelines of this subject. Now, I formally identify them as just women, right? Women want to make sure everything's safe and secure, right? That's their raison d'etre, right? That is the female ambition to stereotype, and I'm not afraid of my stereotypes in this regard, right? There's a reason there's very few women in this subject. Most aren't fighters, they're not combative, right? But they'll still be hearing all of the words that are spoken. They'll still be understanding and appreciating in the same way that everybody else in the discussion, mostly men, are arguing, and what's easy to digest and easy to process. We are at a point, you could perceive it as a crossroads if you're on the opposing side, but it's not. It's just a straight and narrow path from here on in. That every argument for this subject, that's flat Earth, requires Earth be measured flat. Now that is pretty easy to understand, especially when you get a couple of examples that are dead easy, like flight level, surface level, sea level, whatever. Right? All of these easy to understand and easy to comprehend explanations will mean that there is a silent majority in the not too distant future, ones that aren't telling you you're wrong. Also, for their own self-serving, self-preservation, will lie. They'll say, yeah, of course I believe it's a globe. Of course. And you won't hear the subtle believe word because it's said so casually by somebody that knows how to lie for their own benefit, protectively. Now, that underlying majority that I think is out there will eventually start to recognise how flat Earth is and accidentally say it. I've always given this as a bus stop example, where there's two people arguing about how ball-shaped it is, not how flat it is, because that's never been the case, right? And then somebody at the bus stop just tuts and sighs, they give them a foul look, and the person just says, well, it's measured flat, who cares? I'll still have to pay my mortgage tomorrow. Why are you even arguing about this? Chill, pair of dweebs. Right? And those people suddenly react like they react online. Well, I'm going to send that person 50 messages. I'm going to harass them on Discord indefinitely. That person, the guy who's doing that, the people who are arguing about how ball-shaped it is or isn't at the bus stop, they get arrested. They get prosecuted. Now, delusion, because of online interactions, has meant that these people don't recognise how antisocial they actually are, and how there will be a silent majority forming around them based on what has been said over the last 10 years. People will have made up their mind. They just don't care to tell you about it. Now, in your deluded mind, everybody makes their intentions clear. They're going to tell you if they're a evil flat earther. Well, no. Again, delusional. But they will eventually become the majority. They'll just be the way that is thought about, because in a way they already were. We've covered a few of them. Now, they end up in cognitive dissonance when we suddenly get involved and you suddenly harass them. Well, you've got to go for a ball proof next to show your allegiance to my religion. And suddenly some guy that's been describing maps quite happily and sniffing his own farts is going, oh, I need to square this circle suddenly. This is mentally painful. I wasn't expecting this after describing mapping in a flat manner for so many years. But suddenly he's confronted by antisocial dweebs that make demands of him affirming his ball faith, when all he was doing the whole time was measuring Earth flat without a care in the world. Well, that last statement is what this boils down to for us. Everybody who's ever dealing with Earth in any actual capacity that means anything, a fruitful capacity, please go on mute in G+, they all measure Earth flat. And they have to. Often they've been trained to or paid to train in how to deal with Earth. It's just kept separate from us in this stupid porn on the chessboard argument about how heliocentric the world is or isn't. But like I say, the antisocial nature that you have now instilled in your veins will spill out into society with me not having to do a damn thing, and it'll end up in trouble for you. Again, that's the last warning. I said the last one was the last one. That is genuine the last time. I'm going to speak from the heart to my now being divorced opponents as they were in past tense. Go on, whoever was off mute in G Plus in the middle of my ramble.
My dog is barking, so I can't. But there's somebody in chat. See, you want a divorce, but then you got people saying the fiction is on your side. As you said, you don't want to engage in reality. When was the last time any flirter got their ass up and actually did observations and verified them using rigorous math?
Don't need to. So again, this is somebody who's delusional, who wants to put themselves on a pedestal. Like, if you made some measurements, it would be consequential. Me from a year ago would go, I've tracked the sun for 24 hours. If Simon Dan was sat here on the opposition side, he'd go, I've made 1,000 flat Earth measurements of the sun angle from surface level. I've measured Earth. To what consequence? When you say what flat earther has done this, you're talking about the pawns interacting on the chessboard. You're not kings. You're not measuring anything that hasn't been described to you educationally from an ex-man that already knew how to measure the surface and potentially had monetized his knowledge if you were going to do anything practical with it. If you were going to go out to sea, you'd be paying to learn how to do celestial navigation and getting qualified so that you didn't potentially kill people out on your boat. If you're going to fly a plane, you're going to pay thousands, if not tens, if not hundreds of thousands in flight training to learn how to adhere to what ground control tell you when they ascend you to a given flight level. There's consequences for certain people who pay or are paid to deal with and measure Earth flat. The guy in the chat has deluded himself that there's an us versus them. What have you done as a flat earther? Nothing I do has any consequence in this regard. All of the maps and the charting and the flying routines, they've all been established long before I was even born. But you want to make it about me and put me on a pedestal when you ask what flat earther has made measurements of Earth? It's inconsequential if I tell you how flat they are, is my point. If I go on and detail in an argumentative fashion how flat Earth gets measured at sea level for altitude of a plane that's been instructed to ascend to a flight level, it almost lends credence like what you are doing and what we are doing in reply has any meaning. You're not measuring Earth, I'm not measuring Earth. Now, I know what the next thing that will happen is. This person will aggrandise themselves with, I have measured Earth, I've got a trundle wheel, or whatever. But in reality, if you were actually out flying a plane at this moment in time, dealing with Earth and measuring Earth flat, you wouldn't be here on Discord or in my chat. So what I do as a so-called flat earther, that's Nathan Oakley. Forget my title that you've ascribed me to put me on a pedestal. I don't measure Earth. My understanding of how Earth is measured doesn't affect you. So why are you worried about what flat earthers have done? Maybe have a little introspection and realise that you're not the secret king. Whether or not you measure Earth as a globe in your mind has a high degree of importance currently, but it really isn't. You're not the secret king. What you measure is irrelevant. You're not dealing with people's lives. You're not erecting buildings. You're not sailing the oceans on the flat maps with the flat scales that have been given to you. You're not doing any of those things. So get your head out of the clouds, come down to the flat plane that all the people who are being paid to deal with it flat, deal with it. Or bugger off and find like-minded, nasally, adenoidal people to spew your nonsense about. Because you are, that guy in the chat, the stalker, the ex-wife at the end of the road, who can't quite frickin' believe that their husband's gone out and found a new woman within 6 months of the divorce. You want the husband to know that you've been out with the girls on the town. You want that husband to know how well you're doing. It's like, go away. Okay, we get it. You think flat earthers are stupid. Okay, what do you want me to do? Agree? Okay, flat earthers are stupid. They've all come from conspiratorial roots. All the ones who got annoyed because they were not thick-skinned enough to cope with how they got here. Fine. They've already gone. So I can just make this example to you, that individual in my chat right now. You think it's important whether or not you understand the world to be a ball. It's not. You are not important in this regard. If you were, you'd be measuring it flat as we speak. You'd be maintaining a flight level, or levelling your ground so you could build on it, or dealing with a map and the horizontal distance measurements that are on it. You're not doing any of those things. You're here arguing with me. So get your head out of the clouds. Stop putting me on a pedestal. Understand that we brothers, you and I, are inconsequential to how Earth gets measured. It's just flat. It's not that serious. Don't make me your enemy, and in so doing, become a monster. A creepy stalker at the end of the street. That person does get dragged out the car eventually, and the people around you in the cul-de-sac cheer as they watch you getting dragged out with your binoculars and your creepy stalky behaviour. Go and find adenoidal idiots to ask this question to, so you can all sniff your own farts while you tell yourself how bull-shaped it is, and praise the fact that there's no flat earthers around pointing out how measurements of flatness are what give you that bull. Yeah? If I'm not around to make you angry about how flat earth gets measured, then you won't become that stalky monster that society hates.
Yeah, his name is Flat as Crap, so that tells you something. Go ahead, John.
Well, I was just going to say, I had to get 3 ballers out of my trash can this morning. Going through it, like it's become they're worse than raccoons at this point.
Have some introspection.
That's a good analogy. You're right. They're worse than raccoons at this point, because I got 100 of them. I'm just going over some stuff, going through freaking Discord messages, and it does not stop.
Let me ask the Discord server. Hey, hi, everyone in Discord. How you all doing? Hopefully a few people will say hello.
Good morning.
I want to know from you guys, right, because I've had praise for giving metaphorical repercussions to the dweebs that oppose us. What is your take on this currently? Any of you in Discord, feel free.
Just a bunch of idiots. Simple. They think they're right because they have math. We use the math to debunk their position. We use reality to debunk them, but they're like a child that still wants to believe that Santa Claus exists because the cookies and milk that he left out for him the night before are gone, and that's their evidence. They don't get it though. They just can't. They can't grasp it. They're hard-headed. That's my opinion.
Thanks. Right, anybody else from Discord? Like I say, I've been literally, metaphorically, hoisted up on people's shoulders, literally in terms of the praise that I've received, for putting it into a metaphor where these kids get their heads stunk down the bog because they're irritating the big kids. And the only reason you get praise for such an analogy is because the people who are praising me have been victimized by these monsters. And that is slowly what the opponents on the bull-believing side have become. They've become monsters. That's kind of what I want to get your attitude on. I'm trying to heed them and give them warnings of becoming monsters that get chased down like witches. That's kind of what I'm seeking a reaction to.
They don't care, Nathan. They do not care.
At this point, I'm almost certain that most of the anti-flat earthers that are in the communities across Discord servers are just a bunch of shills because they have tactics. All they try to do is discredit you, and they attack you personally, and that's all they have because their precious falsehood, false belief has been ripped away from them. It's destroyed. It doesn't exist. Everything they bring up as an argument, you're going to need a ball for that. you have that proof. Oh, that's going to require a ball too, and you don't have that. So it's pointless with these guys. They're just shills at this point. If they're not getting paid for it, they're pathetic to come every day into this discussion and do what they do. It's just pathetic at this point.
Well, I think you're realising the awful truth, which is you'd like to believe that there's an overarching entity that's organised these people into doing this in a heinous way that I'm describing as being societally deemed as monster-like behaviour. But you've summed it up in the latter part of your response by saying, no, it is just sad. It's like, no, it is just sad. These people just have no introspection. They're not listening to the description of them becoming the monsters. They're going... society says it's not fair to call other people monsters, so I'm calling the police. What? So what you're saying is us pointing out how reprehensible you've behaved means that you're going to go and tell the police, this person said I was reprehensible, go and arrest him. You're like, okay. You couldn't make it up.
and they're watching. I know they are, because message after message comes in with every statement you make. Someone says a message to me about what you're saying. Oh, he's a joke. He can't prove anything. He's a scientist. You're going to deny all the scientists in the world and listen to a guy with a T-shirt on? No, we know
A
what
guy with a
science
t-shirt on.
is. So they appeal to the consensus, and it's just pretty bad. But if I say, okay, talking about measuring Earth and what us flat earthers are doing, so you're telling me when a pilot flies a plane and at the tower, ground control, whatever you want to call it, tell him to ascend to 30,000 feet and maintain 30,000 feet for the next, say, 100 miles, that won't be measuring Earth flat with an altimeter measuring the air pressure? So that's not flat?
No, it is. All measurements of Earth are flat, Neil. Altimeters
Okay, so
measuring your
what's the
height above
problem?
sea level. The information that you're gleaming from an altimeter is your height above sea level.
Okay, so why do we have to do it if the professionals are doing it?
We're not doing it, though, are we? When you say, why do we have to do it? Again, you're deluding
Well,
yourself
because
that we're...
they're asking us what measurements
You're
have we
deluding
taken.
yourself that you're doing something. You're as bad as the next man. The guy who was in the chat, who's put me on a pedestal, or you on a pedestal, or any flat earther that he stereotypes onto that pedestal as having not done something, so that he can delude himself into believing that by contrast he is consequential to this subject. Why should we have to go out and measure Earth flat? Well, there's two parts to that. One, we don't have to go out and do anything. We've just studied the subject and realised that it's measured flat for everybody always. What's that? Well, when will you do... I'm not going to do anything. Why? Because I've studied a subject. As a folly, I'm a YouTuber. I've looked into the subject of flat Earth and found out it was measured flat. What's that? I need to go out and do something because you demand it. You creepy dweeb. You realise you'll end up in a jail cell, right? You think that you're being righteous by coming along and making a demand of some random stranger you've never met and going, you will do this. You're like, society hates you. They absolutely despise you. Nobody likes that guy that goes
That's
into
my
the bar and
point.
starts making the demands. You, by metaphor, are the guy who comes into the off license with a shotgun and tells them all to lie on the floor. Why? Because you say so. Okay, so you're entitled to the till. No, you're not. You're not entitled to anybody's time. You're not entitled to anybody's attention. But you feel justified. Because why? Well, because you think you're consequential to how Earth gets measured. That's the only justification. Because why two reference frames? Well, conservation of momentum means there's only one. Okay, well, that's cognitively dissonant. But why are you expressing this to me? Why? Well, because you want to feel like you're important when it comes to how Earth is dealt with. If it wasn't for you understanding this, hundreds of jobs would be lost. Well, it's like, you've just been manipulated with fear. And the fear has been utilising a method that makes you feel important about how you perceive the world to be. But you aren't important. And neither am I. So when they're like, which flat earther's done this? Like, why are you elevating this group of people that you say are stupid to giving you answers? It's like, do you not see the irony? Do you not see the stupidity? Do you not see how big of a monster you've become demanding this? You're literally in somebody's backyard yelling at them to give you answers and then shouting that this person's bullying me and I need the police to come and save me. You're like, man, hello? This is bonkers. Now, after 10 years of dealing with this absolute insanity, I've had enough. I don't want to be around these people anymore. They are monsters. They're literally unpleasant people that I wouldn't give the time of day to.
My point
Think about
was...
this, right?
Yeah,
Hold on. This analogy, since it goes to the ex-wife, right? Could you imagine your ex-wife standing at the end of your driveway, screaming at you that you saying that you don't love her anymore? You have to prove that by having sex with her, and if you don't, you're a liar.
Or shouting at you to justify the new extension on the house with your new wife. You need to prove that you've got the money to pay for that. What? It's like I heard yesterday people passed on messages via people like Neil. Nathan's not got this when it comes to his publisher. Nathan's not got a deal. Nathan's, what? You are an ex-wife demanding the receipts for a home that's being built without you in it. You're like, what are you doing? And in their mind, they're righteous for demanding said attention. You're like, no, let's just get it clear. You will eventually find this leads to punishment. Now, I've tried to be unsubtle in it. Maybe that's why I'm being praised, because it's so on the nose when I describe it being broken. People are like, yeah, get them! Because they hate you. There's people already around you showing these signs. They hate you. You dweebs. You dweebs that have opposed us for 10 years. Actually, society cannot stand you. Now, you're going to find this out right quick. I'm pretty sure it's coming. I can just sense it.
Well, the thing is this. All I was saying was we don't have to measure anything. The professionals do it, and they do it very well because they take off and land planes with precision, okay, all day long. The other thing is you have a show called Flat Earth Debate, and people are claiming that everybody's banned, but nobody is banned because Nathan can't deal with a certain, I don't even want to say argument, whatever they bring
Hold on,
forth.
let's just clear that up.
Use that banned for personal reasons.
Nobody's banned. So if they were banned from a server that I've been in, number one, what am I going to ban you from, right? I don't run the servers. This current server that we're in is called the Flip Side. It's not mine. I don't run it. So if you're going to moan that you're being banned, moan to the server operator. As far as I'm concerned, we've only been in here a couple of months. So you can't possibly have been banned. If you want to come in, you'll be warmly welcome back if you get ejected from a show. I have said that about 2,000 times. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next show. It isn't some bullshit. You will. Now, if it comes to the point where an operator of a server gets a bit stale and has banned a bit too many people, well, that won't remain the case forever. I have no server. I've not any loyalty either. I'll happily jump around in terms of the server. If you ask me to come to yours, there's a good chance I'll say yes. So I've got no loyalty to these things. Well, people want to claim they've been banned. Like who? I could name on one hand the people who get banned. Generally speaking, they're the people who report me to the authorities as having beaten my kids. You're like, let me get it straight. You're going to falsely report that I beat up my children. Why? Why would I have you anywhere near me? Yeah, Brenda's one of them. Brenda's a complete scumbag. Right, that's why she's been banned. There's a few others that will literally lie to your face. In the case of people like Rumpus and Zanuck, you can prove them wrong, have them completely concede and confess that they're wrong, explain how they understand to be wrong, and then lie through their back teeth hours later. Again, when you can demonstrate beyond any doubt that somebody is an outright egregious liar, why would you want to be around that person? But when we come to the lists of people that have been banned from the show, I can name them and they're on one hand. You're like, you think you've been banned? No, the door's open to the bar. The problem is that you understand that the rules of the bar are you don't get to just shout and stamp on top of a table. What people want to do is come into the bar that's Flat Earth Debate, stand on a table and start yelling at everybody through the top of everybody. And when it's not tolerated, one of the bouncers comes over and says, "Can you sit down, please?" And they go, "No." And then they get kicked out and they go, "I've got a wig and a tracksuit. I'm going to do it again." And again, and again, and again. You're like, you're being antisocial. And they think that because they've got an opinion about Coriolis effect, I should be tolerated being this antisocial. I know. While you've got people who support your endeavour to believe you and they are on a ball, and they will allow you to be as antisocial as you like when you're dealing with people who oppose you, doesn't mean that anybody else in society tolerates that behaviour. It's not just us that won't tolerate antisocial behaviour. It's antisocial behaviour. But because of the lack of introspection and the segregation of Flat Earth, I personally have deluded myself into thinking society accepts this, and they just don't. It's just antisocial behaviour, no matter which way you cut it up. So it's like, well, start highlighting it and the consequences. Yeah, being like that normally ends up in criminal prosecution. Let's drop the metaphors. It's not really a broken nose that you get. That's a much too crass and simplistic explanation. The reality is that creepy woman at the end of the driveway eventually gets locked up. Now, as I say, if the scapegoat's needed, who do you think they've picked if you're going to be that shitbag? It's like, okay, you've bought into the stereotype they want you to be. Well, you're just going to end up being a scapegoat because society doesn't like the people we oppose, or past tense opposed on the globe side, because they're deeply unpleasant people. Now, it seems like they've been rounded up and selected in that way, so they often get called shills. You're like, no, it's not because they're being paid by some power that should not be, unless you want to consider the algorithmic favouritism that payment. They're just lost souls. That's all they are.
Yep, that's correct. And here's the thing. I don't want to be around them no more. I don't. It's sickening. I can't even come on a show without tapping my phone constantly. Bloop, 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 bloop.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't want to be around these people anymore. I'm sick of them.
It's like Neil was.
I am. Sorry, mate.
Host. No, go ahead one day. I was about to make.
Sorry, mate.
Go ahead.
It's a quick one. I was just going to say I'm convinced myself it's psychological what we're witnessing. When we touched on the Alan Watts video a few months ago, he was talking about it, how people behave and want to argue all the time. We've had other videos and we've looked into how the brain actually works when people think that their belief's being challenged, and it does, something happens within you. Chemicals and nervous systems are reactive to, and your behaviour changes. And I think this is what we're witnessing. It's a psychological problem that we're watching.
Okay, so here's the thing. If you are so right, what do you care what we believe or think or prove or understand? Right? Are we kicking down their door saying, that Earth is flat right now? No. So leave us alone. We just want to hang out on the wall, and do what cool kids do. I don't want to be bothered with the dweebs anymore. They're very annoying, very obnoxious, and they don't stop. They can't take no for an answer.
Well, it's interesting because I can contrast what you've just said. What you're appealing to them to behave like. If you're so right, why wouldn't you be completely chill about it? Why wouldn't you be like, I don't care anymore? It's like, I don't need to have this argument. I know I'm right and I can demonstrate it easily. That's how they should be, but can't be, while they try and engage us in egregious, horrible, antisocial behaviour. Well, by contrast, that is the place that I'm at. Like, in terms of the discussion, debate, whatever you want to call it, past tense, I am literally of that apathetic attitude. I don't want to have this. I am so right about how flat Earth is measured that it becomes inconsequential whether or not you're here arguing with me. So I don't care. What's that? Coriolis effect is conservation of angular momentum. Okay, good for you. Go away. Fuck off. I don't want to be around you. You're annoying. You're boring me, and I don't want to be around you anymore. What's that? I need to understand how it's the conservation of... I don't give a shit. Why don't I give a shit? Because I already know it's flat. I know Earth's flat. I could sit here and argue with you if I cared about you. I could sit here and tell you how the non-inertial turning reference frame is flat and point out how you need a flat Earth for your conservation of angular momentum. I could, but I don't care about you. In fact, quite the opposite. I think you're horrible. I don't want to be around you anymore. I don't want to have your so-called argument. But it's because I am absolutely content in my position. I know it is flat. It's not a belief. It's not a, how did you come to believe Earth's flat? It's not a, well, look at the pictures from space anymore. It doesn't matter what you throw at us to affirm your belief anymore. None of that mattered. And converting you so that I can feel better, sniff my own farts, isn't necessary either. Once you reach the point where you're like, I am so right that it makes no difference how wrong you want me to be. Like, I can't be proven wrong anymore. You can't take away that which you require. So at that point, it's like there was no point in having this discussion with any of you. Now, the really cognitively dissonant want to make it about the argument, because then there's still an argument to be had, and they very quickly want to have your kids off you when they face the awful truth that they're wrong. And that is somewhere that I don't want to be anymore. You're like, you, the kind of person that's going to try and take my kids away from me. I don't be anywhere near you. Yeah, and neither does anybody in society. But that was the problem to begin with, wasn't it? We stood in the way of you sniffing your own farts in a social setting where you could talk about the earth moving around the sun and sound like an intellectual. We come along with our conspiracies and our hippie ways and our talking about gemstones and talking about electromagnetism. And you can take the piss out of us when we said you were wrong because we believe it's flat. So that resulted in rows. Now we're at the other end of that journey. The tunnel's come to an end, and the light on the other side showed us that the tunnel's flat, the road's flat, the altitude we're at on the road is flat. The surface level's been measured, the sea level's been charted, everything's been done for us, and we're inconsequential. We're just on a journey that's already been laid out for us long before we were even born, therefore utterly inconsequential in the discussion. And what do you know? There's still somebody in the back seat holding a knife to your throat, shouting at you need to argue about Coriolis effect with them. You're like, what? Get out! Get out of the car! No, I'll get back in. I've got another 5 disguises. I've got a motorbike just parked around the corner. I'll chase you. You're like, you need locking up. I want to be as far away from you, a deeply unpleasant person as possible. Now, whether or not an entire consensus realises that they're on a ball when they're all trained in high school to believe they're on a ball is inconsequential to me. The only thing that's making me uncomfortable and in fear is you. You, the one that is putting me in fear. Fear of losing my family, fear of losing my job, you're the one causing that. Now, the people who have brainwashed you tell you that you are consequential, and unless you believe in that ball, thousands of jobs will be lost, while you go away trying to lose someone their job. The very same person, me, who says, I don't want to be around you. You are unpleasant, and society does not like you. I am part of that society. Now, I might be vocal about my understanding of how flat Earth gets measured, but that does not mean I am worthy of you sat at the end of my drive with a pair of frickin' binoculars demanding that I justify my new extension to you and show you receipts. But you think because we formally discussed how Coriolis effect required a flat plane, you're worthy of sitting on the end of my drive with binoculars, being creepy, coming back in multiple different cars? You're like, get a grip. Seriously, have a word with yourselves, right? And find peace. Find a group of people that can relate to you in your ball faith. And rejoice that there aren't any flat earthers there telling you how flat it's measured when you describe something that requires sticks and shadows off a flat earth, or an elevation from sea level, or a horizontal distance measurement in miles, all of which require flat planes and are the reason we don't want to talk to you anymore.
What I'm doing is I'm taking screenshots every time a message pops up. And so far, I got 30 screenshots. Leave me alone, please. I'm begging you. Be a nice person and just leave me alone.
Yeah, but we can't. We're dealing with a dweeb army, an entitled dweeb army. And they're a dweeb army that feels like they've been wronged societally. Like they're in the right societally. Delusional. Dweebs. Now, the problem for the... Go on.
You know what happens to an army of zealots when they're no longer the primary religion of the country or area they're in?
No.
They get violently removed from that area.
Oh, no. Now they're going to claim that you threaten them with violence.
I get it. They need, rather than taking some introspection on board to make me into the monster, I'm saying, feel free. like I say, when there's actually no recourse, I think the word is, from their perspective, in other words, I've not done anything wrong, I am thick-skinned to their threats. But you're the creepy stalker at the end of the street that's been yelled at, and then you're phoning the police. Someone's just yelled at me. That's what you're doing. Now, I'll point this out till the cows come home. No amount of trying to make me the bad guy will work. Yeah, I've been there, done that. Had the T-shirt been bought for me. Yeah, I've been in a position of being abused and then had the abuser call the police on me many times. It's a standard dance for scumbags. Accuse the victim of the crime. It happens all day. The police deal with it all day long. Oh, what do you know? The person who murdered the woman said she had it coming. What a shock. They're blaming the victim. Yeah, that's what you're doing. But rather than, I've said it through love, I've said I wouldn't repeat it, but I can't help myself when you get these sorts of comments. I'm telling you, this is a slippery road. You'll call the police and they'll start investigating you. That's how it starts. Go and watch some police videos where the person's described as having self-snitched when they're calling the police, suggesting that the neighbour's abusing them. The next thing you know, they're the ones being investigated. That's how it begins. So you guys who are so inclined to call for help from the alphas, right? Yeah? All right, he's inciting violence. What are you going to do about it? Oh, you're going to go and get some big boys to sort it out for you? You're going to call the police? Oh, how very brave and special of you. Oh, how very, very, very bold. You're like, you pathetic gammers. You're just abiding by your own stereotype. Go and get the authorities. What, get people who can do that which you cannot because you are weak? Yeah, of course. Yeah, call the alphas to your rescue. The ones who are obliged. But they're being paid. Yeah? And what do they do for a living? The authorities. They're paid to sniff out bullshitters and projectors and the actual abusers. And quite often when the police are presented with, here's 40 screenshots from a man that says I'm threatening him, and they look at them and go, holy shit, this person that called the police has been harassing the living shit out of you for years. And you go, yeah. And they go, oh, well, we better go and get him then, eh? That's what will happen. But before you know it, you'll be the one answering questions and you'll be like, I'm the victim here. Have you ever heard that little battle cry? I'm the victim. I'm the victim. Yeah, that's what happens to the dweebs and the monsters and the creepy stalkers. Yeah, they want to blame their victims. They want to say she had it coming. And that's what you're doing. Nathan had it coming. He was threatening violence. What, because I dragged you out of your car with your binoculars and stamped on your head? Yeah, that is what would happen to you. Yeah? That is how society is. Men will behave like that. That's what men do when they've had enough of the little dweeb with his binoculars wanking in his car over your daughter looking through her window. That's what happens. And everyone who knows what you are and has watched you without saying anything, they cheer. And you appeal to them and go, can you tell him to stop dunking my head down the toilet? And they cheer. And you don't seem to get it. You think that when you're being perceived to be wronged, that everyone will come to your aid because you're entitled, that they'll all come and rescue you. But in reality, they all hate you. And that extends to the authorities. The authorities, they're alphas too, and they hate dweebs. Dweebs who waste their time, call them up and demand help because they can't help themselves. Those alphas, the police, they hate you too. They think you're time wasters and they despise the very sight of you. Now, you'll find that out in time, yeah? Me, I'm well versed in such things, so I can spit these facts at you and let you find out when you fuck around. And you will. You just haven't fucked around enough online with an anonymity that has afforded you this behaviour until society says, no, we're not going to stand for it online either. And it started happening. It started happening in about 2020. They started saying, no, we're going to start prosecuting them for their online personas as well. You're going to behave like a shit and be antisocial online. Yeah, we'll punish you there too. So the days of the internet troll are going to come to an end. And they'll very quickly, these trolls, find out that everybody around them despises them and wants to see them in pain and punished.
Yeah, I told you this was going to happen. Once the argument was ended, when we came to the realization how Earth is measured, and we have really nothing to do with it. I agree 100% because I'm not going out measuring anything unless I'm doing a job. You're going to create enemies on both sides. So you have flat earthers that still want an argument to be had because, like you say, they want to be the intellectuals and pat themselves in the back because they could take apart heliocentrism. And you have the other side screaming they're right, and we want to save humanity from all of the nonsense you flirts are coming out with. Because it's not correct. You don't know what science is, and you're poisoning a generation. So you have enemies on both sides. I'm content because I know what Earth is. I don't even want to deal with this anymore, to be honest. I want to come, hang out, talk about how Earth is measured. If we can, maybe we can go into some other places where they measure Earth flat, although that has failed too. So I don't know. And I'm waiting for the book to come out because the book is going to be very, very enlightening to a lot of people. So, yeah, that's where I stand.
Well, I've got at least 10 minutes left. Anybody else got an opinion on this?
Oh, yeah, I'll go after them.
Okay, well, you'll be going after a super chat, so let's just sit down and read that out. Shout out to their denial of truth is a spiritual defect at some level. Hashtag mortgage fund. Hashtag mortgage fund definitely got a crack at me. Yeah, I'm super poor, I'm not going to lie. Was the one that I missed earlier to that? Doesn't look like it. Also, shout out to, who was that? Let's just get that person's name. I can't see it on the abbreviated super chat on the chat. Chain Wax. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. Also, Tommy Iommi, is it? Tony Naomi, thank you very much for the super chat. I have a Glober by the name of Black Sabbath harassing me in Gem Panda. He wants Neil to check his DMs. Creepy. Yeah, I completely agree. Notice how these are the people I was talking about earlier that are sticking me on their shoulders when I'm describing you having your head stunk down the toilet. They're not coming to your aid saying don't dunk his head down the toilet. They're clapping and then laughing at you as you run through the corridors to the headmaster's office to seek retribution in the only way that you can as a weak little man. Right? I can't find that chat in the list. Sorry, Tony. I would have put it on screen if I could have found it. Hello, 911. I want to report a crime. Sea level is flat. Very good. Thank you for all these super chats. I really appreciate the support.
I think one of the reasons they've gotten by with it for so long, besides the anonymity that the internet offers them, is because the understanding we have at this moment is extremely advanced for this topic. But when everybody else catches up, there's going to be hell to pay. That is what you're trying to warn them about. And they're taking that as you're threatening violence. They're stupid.
I see it as kind of ironic that an advanced understanding would lead us into almost complete apathy for the subject itself. To the point where people are like, is he going to be walking away from the subject? Like, no. The subject, when you phrase it as follows, debate. You're like, well, there isn't one. Now, I'll call it that because there's a perception of one that we can discuss. The psychology of an opponent that sees us with our advanced understanding as more dangerous than anybody else. We could say to Wood Blue in the face, go and harass the other flat earthers. Obviously, I don't want to, this is where I do feel like I'm inciting. But nevertheless, as an example, go and harass the other flat earthers, the ones that believe 9/11 was an inside job, or the ones that say that Sandy Hook wasn't real. Go and pester them and their bullshit, right? The stuff that they can't prove, that might or might not be true, as opposed to us with our flat earth measurements you're all using, because we don't want to talk to you anymore, right? That we are or have become far more dangerous to them and their belief. Therefore, the focus on us as we reach the point where we're like, we don't need to talk to these so-called opponents anymore. They're measuring Earth flat too. We don't need to have any involvement. That is when they're literally yelling at us at the top of their lungs that we need to answer their arguments, and we need to look at them and naming arguments after us. Like you're like at the pinnacle of our apathy for you. You need more of us than ever. Bizarre. It's the same. It's like the creepy ex-wife. You know, she wouldn't pay you any attention. She wasn't shagging you. Next thing you know, when you've gotten divorced and you've got a new woman, she's at the end of the fucking driveway. All she can do is give you her bleeding attention then, the creepy bitch. You're like, oh my God. You know what I mean? These are all the same people that are moaning that they're banned, by the way. These people are utterly delusional.
Yep. They're all in a psychological dilemma, without a doubt.
I've still got at least 5 more minutes on this live show. I'm going to make a coffee in case the show kicks off and we need to stay alive a bit longer. I'm on my radio mic, very excited. See, these are the things that make me happy. The fact that I can walk around and make a cup of coffee. Go ahead, whoever that was.
Did you get to read Tony Iommi's super chat?
Has there been another super chat that I've missed?
No. The one that you said you couldn't find, because I can't find it either.
Oh, it's from earlier on in the show, that was all, and we were nearly at the end of the hour, so it must have been earlier than the chat keeps record of. But I tried. I scrolled all the way up.
Yeah, I'm just asking him to just rephrase it to me so you can read it out.
It's nice of you, Neil. You know, it's it seems as if there's people in this community, though, who would take advantage of your polite behavior.
No, see, they can't get to Nathan, right? So they're trying to get to me to ask Nathan questions. This is going on for years. I won't even mention the names because I don't want to give them any airtime. But I can scroll back at least 2 years. 2024, I got messages from them. So I just decided to look at them and see how heavy the stalking has been. It's been heavy duty stalking. And they claim that they're banned, but these people are banned. I know they are, the few that I'm talking about, because they said some derogatory things about Nathan. And that's why they're banned. Not because Nathan can't deal with their arguments.
Well, they've got to have someone to blame for shattering their belief, and Nathan's getting the blame, and they want to take him down. He is. Go on, mate.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to say, but Nathan's not doing it. The pilot that flies is doing it. The cartographer that makes the maps is doing it. The guy that's doing the surveying of the land is doing it. Right? The person that goes and does celestial navigation, he's doing it.
They're blaming the messenger, aren't they? Because we're just highlighting that. We've been doing it now for a while on the show, looking at surveyors and map making company, celestial navigation, just showing real life videos and engineers and people using and measuring the Earth flat, which that's how it's dealt with. But it's Nathan's show. He's promoting this, not promoting it, just highlighting it and showing normal people presenting that evidence and putting out the message. And he's getting the blame as the messenger. And they must feel threatened. They are. They're feeling threatened for some reason.
Well, it's the thing when you decide to, you know what, I'm not paying. I always said this too in the chat. Star Patrol. You Star Patrol, and they'll stop. But in this case, they don't. It's been years. It's been years of starvation. I mean, they're worse than a Biafra case. They're still hanging on. They still got a little breath. Enough breath to type a message and send it. Type a message and send it. Even if you don't respond, they'll just keep doing it and doing it and doing it.
Something genius in the metaphor. Sorry, in the metaphor, I've got the ex-wife, and I said, oh, well, we can divorce ourselves from them because we haven't got kids together. That's wrong, right? The kids are the flat earth measurements. Yeah? They belong to both parties. So for that reason, they're going to hang around indefinitely because they're attached to us because we've got kids together, metaphorically. What are the kids?
Wow.
The flat Earth measurements. They need them. We need them.
I like that one, Nathan. What'd you come up with that one? Going for coffee?
Well, I was going
That
for
was
coffee.
brilliant. That was
That's a
great.
good
That
one.
was absolutely.
That's, you can
that's
thank
brilliant.
the radio microphone for that. Having the ability to go and get coffee while a live show streaming is down to this bad boy, the Freddie Mercury microphone, the Shure 565 SD with a switch.
What the kids called is one called horizontal and one called vertical.
Yeah, we've got a distant cousin called Perpendicularity. It's a beautiful, beautiful girl.
So wait a
Parallel
second.
is the. Well,
Yeah,
I just
no.
want to say something about Parallel because he's a good boy. He's not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but he is Parallel.
So we have children together. Thank you, Nathan. I didn't need to be reminded of that. I thought they were all grown and out on their own.
No, we got kids together, us and the dweebs.
So wait, so you're basically saying we have puppies together because with a puppy you got a toddler for 15 years. So how do you? Because they're not grown adults, because grown adults don't act like this. So we have adolescents together, and that's going to be forever. That's kind of scary.
Well, it's sad though because they want to deny their children in the same breath that they
Oh, dear.
take
Yeah.
them from us.
While the creepy stalker
Bang.
ex-wife is at the end of the driveway with binoculars, the 8 and 12-year-old are at home on their own.
Now you could go all over with this analogy. I like this one.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, like I say, we're telling them to bugger off. Go away, right? You'll see the kids next Saturday when you need to declare that you're on a ball. You'll need your flat Earth sea level and your altitude from it next Saturday because you'll be using it to try and defraud the system into giving you money. So, you'll be using and abusing the kids soon enough.
So
But
when
that's
they
the
say
problem.
we don't need the horizontal baseline, we get it from the vertical. You're denying the child. You're denying the freaking horizontal child.
It used to be the case that a flat earther would argue with a globe earther about how far you should see on a globe. And in order to do so, both parties utilised horizontal distance measurements, sea level measurements, surface level measurements, and height, that's altitude, off the surface level. About 4 different flat earth prerequisites needed to be understood and utilised by both anti-flat earthers and anti-globers, formerly described as flat earthers and globe believers. They both needed to utilise flat earth in its actual measurement. Now we've come along and gone, now that we understand that the measurement is flat, we don't want any part of you anymore. But up until that moment, they got to use the geography classroom in their examples of how bull-shaped their belief was, without anybody checking them on it. And if it ever came up subtly because there was a minor cognitive break in the flat earther, the response was preconditioned into our anti-flat earth brethren. It's so big, we measure it flat. Now that used to be responded to by the flat earther by telling the globe believer how globe-shaped they should be believing in the world. You couldn't make it up. So it's self-perpetuating. The flat earther's telling the globe, you shouldn't be utilising this flat earth prerequisite measurement you need. You should be telling me how curvy the ground is that you've just told me is okay to measure flat. Locally flat. Well, if you're using it flat and I'm using it flat and that's the only measurements, then there's no discussion anymore. Not, you'll justify how flat you measure it by saying it's local. You'll justify how flat it's measured by saying it's a really big ball. But now we don't want to hear about your justifications. It's just measured flat. You apologising for it is irrelevant to me. If you want to say, it's measured flat because it's a really big ball, good for you. Yeah, have it. It's on me. But I don't want to have the discussion anymore. I know it's flat, and it seems so to you. Just so flat that the big ball wouldn't show anything other than the flat measurements you're taking. Now, if that's good enough for you, keep it, right? But moving forward, they're just, by analogy, the kids that bind us. right? You need flat Earth measurements. You just prefer we didn't point them out. We have moved away from you because Earth's measured flat. If it's measured flat, it's flat. It's a step too far. You don't need to turn this into a logical consistency. It is just flat. So who cares why you justify how flat it must be by suggesting it's a really big ball? By suggesting that we don't understand how if you put a load of flat swimming pools next to each other, that means it's ball-shaped. I don't want to hear it. You're just boring, for a start. This is dweeby. What you're discussing isn't something I concern myself with. In fact, I find it dull. So I don't want to have this conversation anymore. I know it is flat. And my confidence in that fact means that I don't need to talk to you anymore to affirm my own belief in this. It's not a belief. Just is measured flat. Now, like I say, I'm giving you this. This is on me. Whenever you come across the awful truth that we at Flat Earth Debate talk about, that's how Flat Earth gets measured. Repeat after me. It's only flat because it's a really big ball. Done. There you go. That's on me. You can have it. That's Nathan Oakley's gift to you. It's only measured flat because it's a really big ball. Okay? Thumbs up. Now fuck off.
Yeah, but that's a stupid statement. But you can give it to him. Yeah, still measured flat.
Yeah. But then you get accused of lying. He's a liar. He's a liar. He's a liar. And now I'm getting voice messages. They're recording messages and sending them to me.
Yeah, I get it. They'll tell the authorities, no, he's been threatening me. Well, you're sat at the end of his drive with binoculars. Well, he came and shouted at me. Yeah, because you sat at the end of his drive looking up at the window where the kids are, talking about them on your phone. And he's got rid of you twice, and here you are with a wig on, with a different number plate. So, what, you want my sympathy? Yeah, he got shouty. He said that in a different world, somebody would be dragging him through my car window. That's what he said to me when he came up to the car. What, the car that's parked at the end of his driveway where you sat in it with binoculars in? Yeah, that's not the point. He said he would get dragging me out of this window if I didn't move. So you need to go and arrest him, please. Yeah, that policeman in that scenario, he hates you.
Step out of the vehicle, sir.
Yeah, step out of the vehicle, please. Yeah, exactly. You get your head smashed into the pavement by the policeman in that circumstance when you argue with the policeman, because that's how you're inclined, right? When you're shouting at us, you must address our argument. You'll do that to the policeman. You'll forget who you're dealing with, and they will smash your fucking head into the pavement. That's what they'll do to you. While you go, he shouted at me through my car window while I held my binoculars. Now, the policeman's going to smash your face into the pavement. That's what he's going to do to you. Now, that's me not giving it out of love. That's a reality sandwich right there. Yeah? You'll end up with a policeman smashing your nose into the ground and then leaning on your ribs, potentially breaking them, leaving you covered in bruises in a cold cell. That's what's going to happen to our opponents. And the people who actually benefited from heliocentric deception, that got money from it, they'll be absorbed into the system that also sneers at you. There'll be one that sneers at you because they'll just change their attitude. Yeah, they'll say things like, we always knew it was flat. That's what they'll do while you're having your head smashed into the pavement by a policeman.
I think you got a super chat.
Is it from...
I'm surprised you're not getting a whole bunch of super chats for this. This is probably the most enlightening thing about this topic to come to realize is that the people who say they are debating us are stalking us in reality.
Yeah, exactly correct. Shout out to Chainwax, who says, the poor children that come out of these broken relationships. Hashtag child support. It's a metaphor, but I take your super chat to be in line with the metaphor, which is why I'm laughing. Hashtag flat measurement support. Thank you very much for the super chat, Chainwax. All right, I think we're coming to the end of
I told you this was going to cause a problem. This lean back, casual attitude is going to cause a big problem with both sides, and I'm correct.
Is that
But
you?
if you keep ignoring them enough, they'll put their eyes on space and they'll wait for the next NASA thing to happen. And that'll give them their cope.
What, when they're measuring the altitude from sea level?
I was about
That's
to
correct.
say, are they talking about that place where we use length, width, and height to describe everything with respect to a plane?
What, space? Yes.
Yeah, space. Yeah.
Yeah, like today on a sports show that I watched, they were talking about how many satellites are in space right now, how many Elon Musk has just with Starlink alone. But then somebody on the other side says, yeah, but then how come I can't sometimes get a phone signal?
Right, on that glorious communication note, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's live show possible. If you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering Streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow.
He was
get a
opening his
name like
name
that.
up. I don't want to go on the show. So I did that while Nathan was doing the changeover.
So you don't get a name like that for nothing, do you?
No, but that's it. I'm not giving him time no more. I'm not mentioning, I'm not reading anything. When we're off air, I'll read them to you guys to see how deranged they are. This is derangement.
Thing is, like you say, Neil,
Now,
like it's not.
now,
I think we've not.
now
I
when
think it was it.
Go on,
Okay.
whoever's trying to get in
Just-
with Sasha. Is it Sasha?
yeah,
Go ahead.
Nathan, just because of Tony, read him. He sent it to you too, super chat, but you didn't see. It's all right, but it's an. He sent it one before. That's what you read.
Oh, you're saying that you said, is that Tony sending the same super chat a second time? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, yes.
Oh, right, yeah, my bad, I didn't see that. Some creepy stalker named Black Sabbath from Jam Panda has been harassing me in DMs. That was his second time he sent the same similar super chat. I did read it out the first time. He added the word creepy the second time around. Thank you, Tony, for the super chats.
Oh, it is creepy. They are creepy. They're creepy stalkers that don't stop.
I was just trying to say, like we're talking like this, and I think it has been a natural journey and progression, and over the last few weeks or months, like accepting that it's just measured flat and that's the way it's dealt with, and not really, pulling away from the triangles videos and Simon Dan's and not Professor Dave, and getting out of that slagging them off and arguing, getting into the normie videos. We've progressed into this actually pretty chilled vibe, haven't we? It's not like we've said, right, we've got to be chill now, and it's just happened naturally, and it's causing a bit of friction for them for some reason. They don't like seeing us chill, but it's just been a natural progression, a natural journey, which is fantastic.
I was right. I told you they were going to go to space. Listen to this one. Artemis will again prove and show you globe Earth in space. Then what you say? I told you they were going to go to space.
I would like to know the linear distance this claimed object is from the surface of Earth. Tell us all about it.
They'll do anything to get away from this flat Earth, won't they? Hey?
I told you they're going to space. They're going to continue to go to space. That's their thing now. If we're going to totally ignore what they're doing is, what is that? The future, Nathan, you called it something.
But space doesn't help them.
Yeah, but
Think about it. Length, width, and height. Is those curves or are those vectors?
no, they're vectors, but they don't hear that. Just like they don't hear that they need a horizontal plane of reference for every measurement they take. They close their ears to that. That's the child they don't want no part of. They'll tell you, I could get it with my son, the vertical. The vertical.
Well, one of the reasons, like, I kept on trying to point out the measurement thing back when it first started is it is a lot easier to reach enlightenment through knowing than it is through not believing.
Yep, the horizontal plane of reference is the ginger child they want to deny.
Where'd you come up with that? Why do they got to be redheaded? Why they got to be the redheaded step? I'm redheaded. Come on.
Horatio, he's called.
You know, this really first started like showing its head though when Nathan was pointing out, the straight lines they're using. You remember what they would respond with? Well, it's straight in a curved way. That one sticks with me. God bless him. I don't know. I can't remember who said it, but it was hilarious.
Yeah, I told you. I got it yesterday. Yeah, you do know level can be curved, right? One deck.
So having no part higher or lower than the other can have a continuing change in direct vector. Like, what?
I don't know if you looked. I posted that how to teach a child the difference between level and curve. Did you have a look at it? It's just what they do with kids, like pulling a string, taunt a string, and that'll be level, and let it loose, and you'll see the curve. And then it references lying down in a or standing up in a straight line, vertical, or lying down on the floor in a straight line, horizontal. And then for a curve, did curl their arms and touch the toes. Just to show the difference between level and curve, to a child. It was quite funny. I put it in Master B earlier, but just for a laugh.
Well, that's the primary school understanding of level. We need a new level if we're going to talk about the Earth as a sphere. The bad part is I can't even make jokes about it anymore because it's like it seems in bad taste to make fun of them now. So it's almost in bad taste because it's so blatantly friggin' obvious that I feel like I'm making fun of like mentally slow people.
But pardon the pun. You look back last year, the year before. I'm arguing with people for half an hour. I'm going down to their level to discussing the definition of level. Thinking, what the hell am I doing?
When it comes to the whole level is curving thing, to describe a curve, you derive it from a plane. In other words, how curvy is it? Well, you need an overall flat reference to describe the curve with respect to. So when they say level's curved, it's the same as Buck Sodbuster with his trundle wheel. It's like, if you're going to derive 8 inches per the mile squared aspect has to be flat to derive the squared function from. That's how it works. But they want to say, well, no, what I'm just deriving the squared function from also curves. You're like, well, then how much does that curve? It's an infinite. It almost becomes an infinite regress fallacy. Well, that curve's derived from a flat horizontal that's imaginary. Well, where'd you measure that? Well, I measure that at the horizon, but that's also curving. You're like, what? How far down the road can you kick this can, where you need to derive curvature from horizontal reference planes?
I think all the way to the celestial plane. I think that's where they're at with it now.
They just want you to go away, Nathan. That's what it is, too. Just go away.
That's not true either, though, is it? That's the ex-wife at the end of the drive saying, I just want them to go away. Why are you sat at the end of the drive, then?
Yeah, I'm getting ready to say that. That's kind of odd that they're saying that to Nathan.
Well, they're saying because of his laid-back, casual approach to it, that he's basically going to tip out soon. And what are you going to do? Are you going to pick it up after when Nathan leaves? It's their desire. They want Nathan to leave badly. So they're trying to will it into reality. I don't know. It's very weird.
We are necessary for their argument, is what it is. Because without us pointing it out or arguing, without us trying to make an argument against their claims, they just seem foolish on their face.
No, I've got the same problem. One's off to gaming club. Hello.
The Batman keys.
Don't know where the Batman keys are.
Oh, I've got the car keys then. So.
Well,
did someone in Discord just say hello?
No, it's all gone very silent. I'm being told what kids are doing and what activities they're doing and what lessons they're going to. So it's just a mild silence while I'm not interacting with anybody.
My hands are wet. I'll be right with you. I got something.
Hey, Nathan. I had
Hello.
a question. You have children and, they're exposed to the heliocentric model. How do you balance at home, being a flat earther while still wanting your children to perform well at school and regurgitate that information?
I don't want them to regurgitate that information. I don't know what's giving you that idea. They're exposed to heliocentrism regardless because they watch YouTube or, certain lesson plans that we give them utilize heliocentric examples. But that's not something I want to train them in. With the older one, Eleanor, I'll explain to her that is the Western world religion and that she needs to respect that. That is to say, I dissuade her from behaving like I behave on my show, which she undoubtedly overhears, because she needs to be respectful of other people's beliefs. So from that point of view, I'll be telling her that and also highlighting certain aspects of heliocentric belief, often when they're incongruent with something that's actually happening in front of us, like a view from the window, you know what I mean? Like when we can see really far. On the way to the art class, there's a particular point where we get up really high on a hill and you can see for miles and miles and miles. And every time we go, nice view. Oh yeah, that reminds me. You must be respectful of other people's belief in being on a ball.
Did you say see far?
Yeah.
As long as you don't put that two in there, you're good.
I'm sorry, Neil. Just on the same topic, when I said regurgitate, I mean they have to take their tests and they have to answer the way they want them to on the tests.
What tests?
So is there?
Yeah, he's talking
test?
about the science, and I put the air quotations up, tests where they have heliocentrism as part of the questions and answers. It is important when you're in a society that you have at least a general understanding of that society's religion. It helps you conform. It helps, it's just the polite thing to do.
Yeah.
So
But that's not because I want them to pass any tests. Only the other week, my wife and I were saying, at the end of their schooling, which is a fair way off, do we want them to go through certain tests or not? Because there's no obligation to. They don't have to do GCSEs. And we may not put them in that position. Up until now, they've not been tested at all. So when certain kids in certain classes are compared to each other, like you're only at a 5th grade reading level when you're in 7th grade, so you're doing badly. I categorically do not want that behaviour around my kids. I find that quite egregious. And that's how schools are with kids. You're behind. And you're like, why? Because you've arbitrarily decided that at age 7 they should be able to read this well. Why? Maybe they'll be able to read that well when they're 9. As long as I feel that I've done my due diligence in terms of making sure that they can read, how quickly they pick up reading skills is inconsequential. Where one of my 2 daughters, I'm not going to name which one, is more artsy, the other one is more strictly academic in that regard, maths and English versus performing arts and music. But it's not like I'm going to condemn the one who's more academically inclined to be more musical. Why would I do that? Other than making her feel bad about how she's got a lacking ability in music production? You're like, well, she hasn't. She's just not developed that skill based on her genes, environment, education, whatever you want to call it. How I tend to lean into whatever they're good at. So if they show an aptitude for a certain type of subject, they'll be pushed in that direction. So for that reason, they both get very different classes, where the one takes an art class, the other one's got a kung fu class. One's learning to kick ass while the other one's learning to paint. You know what I mean? I just lean into whatever they're good at. But they're never going to be... I mean, yes, she does get tested. That's not true. In the karate class, they give them certain grades and belts. So she is being tested. But not in the way that you're talking about.
So
Yeah, but that's the beauty of
I'm
homeschool.
expecting a daughter's, and if she decides to go in my footsteps, say she wants to go to medical school, she's going to be hearing these ideas, and she's going to be studying these things which are going to go against, the nature of reality and what's true. So I kind of, I'm just concerned about having to have different ideas at home versus school. Yeah.
Well, like what?
Well, when they're going over the heliocentric model in their science classes, she's going to have to answer the way they want her to answer.
That has nothing to do with medical.
Hold on, but who are they? Your daughter's in a normal school, right?
No, I'm expecting. I'm just thinking in the future.
I mean, if you sign over your rights of education to the state, then you just have to live with that and accept that what the state want from them is what will be tested. Now, my expectations of my daughters are my own, right? And no one else's.
May I fill this one since my kids are in public school?
Mm-hmm.
What I know does not have to affect what they believe for the age they are in order to conform to certain societal norms. I learned this pretty quick with my second son, is when you tell them something like, the earth is flat, they want to repeat it. All kids want to do that. So it is important that they're at an age where they understand that to challenge people's beliefs is to invite, problems. So, there's a certain amount of responsibility that you have to take accountability for with your own kids and their understanding. Because there's nothing wrong with me saying I don't believe it's flat. Just so that they can be educated.
I think it's a good idea to kind of discuss it in the way of religion. That, you know, it's a belief. You have to respect other people's religions. They can believe things that differ from what you believe or what you know, and kind of teach it in that way so that it's not going to be causing problems or conflict with people.
That's exactly how I approach it. I teach both of them to be respectful of other people's beliefs, and I don't, to my knowledge, remember a time I've taught them about flat Earth. You know, there is a certain expectation that they'll overhear it because I've got a show on the subject, but I'm not going out of my way to teach them about this subject in any way, shape, or form. The closest I've actually got to that actually came very, very recently when I handed both of them a book on flat Earth. And it was to my knowledge, my wife might say, no, actually, I've mentioned it up in conversation a couple of times. But to my knowledge, that's the first time I've ever broached the subject specifically with either of them, when I handed them a book that I was sent that was addressed to them by somebody else that interacts with the show. Now, it wasn't going to be the case that I was going to shy away from it. That person went to great expense, that's Level Plain Poem, to get me her books. And she wrote specific notes to each of my kids on those books, so I handed them to them. But to my memory, that is the first time the subject's been directly approached for them, for their benefit. Like, here's a book on flat Earth specifically. Here you go. Go away, read it. Because why would I need to? My concern is, like I was echoing on today's show, right? My concern is actually for the disdain that they might experience from the next man. Right, I'm not concerned that they're going to offend people. I've raised them to be polite and likeable and amiable children, and they are. They are very well loved when they go out and they interact with anybody ever. People often will go out of their way to comment on that fact, and are normally shocked and taken aback when you tell them that they're homeschooled. I'm like, really? Like, what? Because you expect them to be social misfits for having been home educated. That is the expectation. So when they can hold a conversation with an adult, and they're like, aren't they well behaved and polite? And you're like, yeah. What school do they go to? Oh, they don't. We're homeschooling them. Really?
You know,
homeschooling is not what it was
people,
like 20, 30 years ago, where it was, you know, weird people or children with like conduct disorder and stuff like that. I feel like homeschooling is much more viable these days.
Yeah, it was normalised by COVID. COVID was absolutely brilliant in that regard. It was so beneficial, because in the same way as I don't want to have that conversation about flat Earth when I'm out at Legoland or out making my shopping rounds, the same applies to homeschooling. You don't want to have that conversation because pre-COVID, that's all you got. Will they be socially maladjusted from some adenoidal prick with no children?
Yes. Not only that, family members would get involved, telling you you're doing the wrong thing. So COVID was a big plus for homeschool.
I found out something absolutely fascinating when we declared to our family that we were going to homeschool our daughters. At the time, it was obviously just the one, right? When we said that, I found out that two of my cousins were both homeschooled, but I had been protected from that information by my parents, my dad being a teacher. Now, he wasn't always a teacher and went on to do programming and owned a computer company, but before that, he was a teacher. And he was absolutely against someone who was not in any way associated with him. It was my mother's sister's kids being homeschooled. And he didn't like it, to the point where that information was kept from me. So there was a tone of, oh my God, here we go again. I can't quite believe this is happening. And you're like, well, what do you mean? Well, obviously with, I won't mention their names, being homeschooled. And I'm like, were they? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was a big thing. Like my wife's sister, she was like, you can't do that. You didn't even graduate high school. Because for a while, we didn't homeschool because I thought that we had to be graduates and college graduates and freaking have this total understanding of the schooling system.
Nope.
I was like, no. You just got to freaking go and you get a curriculum and they follow the curriculum. You don't have to. You could be an 8th grader.
You don't have to follow the curriculum. That's something that I found out pretty quickly. There's an expectation here in the UK that when you homeschool, that you school them, that you teach them stuff. It doesn't actually matter what. There's no expectation, there's no testing, right? Now, don't get me wrong, there is a certain aspect of the state keeping an eye on you because they want you to make, or my wife more accurately, to make a report once a year to demonstrate that we are actually schooling them. Right, and we give plenty of examples and talk about the classes that we pay for them to go to and all the rest of it, and we get praise back from our council. Not that we're looking for it. I'd prefer that they weren't involved at all, but you can understand to a degree in a polite society why they'd want to at least have some knowledge that they're getting actually schooled rather than abused. So I can appreciate that, right? I understand it. I don't like it because that makes me aware that there are people that take their kids out of school so that they can abuse them. And that is a horrible world that we live in, but it is a world that we live in and they've experienced that. So they can justify it. They can say, well, look, based on previous experience with people who homeschool, there is a certain nefarious type of person that just wants access to their kids for nefarious means. You're like, fine. Based on that, I can understand why once a year you want a couple of hours work out of us just to keep you off our back. You're like, fine, I will accept that. It's not ideal, but you can have it. But when they're asking their questions, all they really want to know is, are you actually teaching them stuff? You know, are they becoming more whole as they edge their way to adulthood? Not, are they reading at a 5th grade level? Do they have a good science acumen? Have they grasped English language and English literature? They're not concerned with any of that at all. Now, I found that out before we had kids when I interviewed a guy just after Flat Earth UK and just before Flat Earth Debate. I was interviewing random people and obviously planning a family. And one of the guys I interviewed homeschooled. And I went through all of my misapprehensions about what that would be. And he explained, no, so long as you take them out one day and you're talking about, I don't know, you walk past a tree and see the roots and you start talking about how a tree root works, that's it. That's all you need to do. And you're like, well, I do that just by being in their company. You know, I'm a bit dweeby and we'll go through some adenoidal nasally stuff that I've learned over my, lifetime that I can pass on to the kids because it's an interesting folly as they learn about something random that they're seeing as we're travelling. You know what I mean? When you're just out and about with them. When you're with them, any responsible person would feel compelled to tell them about stuff, to correct them when they're speaking improperly, like using poor grammar. Like I'm finding myself constantly correcting them in terms of their use of good grammar because I want them to speak properly. But you just naturally do that anyway, unless you're a shitbag. You know, unless you are that nefarious guy and you're self-centered and don't care about your kids. But naturally, you just find yourself teaching them stuff. But it doesn't mean that I want to, therefore, test them on it afterwards. Right, there's going to be an exam on tree roots this afternoon, girls. Get yourselves a seat. You're like, no, they'll take it in. They're like little information sponges. Go ahead, Neil.
It might be different in the UK. Over here, we could pick whatever curriculum we wanted to, and the curriculum teaches them. But what actually happened is my wife got educated. So she got, where she left school, I think in the 11th grade, she was learning stuff as she's teaching them. But for years, we didn't homeschool because I thought we couldn't homeschool. So that's the only thing that sucks about it, because I would have done it right from the beginning if I knew better. I wouldn't have sent my kid one day into a public school.
Yeah, and furthermore, when I had the conversation with a neighbour the other day, right? So I was outside and we were about to go somewhere, I don't know where, one of the classes, and Warren, one of my neighbours, just walks past and he's like, he's looking at me with a funny look and I don't know why. And so I'm just like, what? He's like, well, why are the kids not in school today? I'm like, oh, we homeschool them. He's like, oh, right, is it because you don't like how the schools behave? And I was like, no, it's not got nothing to do with how the schools behave, because, frankly, I've had no experience with them. I have no idea how they behave. But his attitude to me was, he's kind of being empathetic and saying, oh, it's because the schools are horrible and you don't like how they treat the kids. That was his go-to, rather than, that's a bit weird that you haven't got them in school. Now, that is since COVID. Like, plenty of people have taken a positive attitude with respect to homeschooling and a negative attitude towards how schools behave. So whenever you hear somebody talking about their schooling of their kids, they're normally moaning and bleating about how poor their education is, or how they're not being trained, or they're not getting the right amount of attention that the kids should be getting, or that they're getting in trouble for something that they shouldn't be. They're moaning, in other words, about how crap the school is. So you come along and go, oh, I don't have any of those problems, I homeschool. And they're like, oh, right. And they widen their eyes and go up in their inflection and seem positive about it. And express a certain degree of jealousy. Like, I wish I could do that. Whereas, like I say, pre-COVID, you were looked at like you were probably abusing your kids.
I never looked at it that way, but you're right. You did. I would get funny looks. Like, because we would just go, let's say on a November morning, take a ride to the mall. This is when I was living in New York, and people would be looking at us. That's why, because I had my kids with me. I didn't even realize that till you just said that. They were supposed to be in school. That's why people were looking at me weird.
Oh, I figured that out straight away. Well, like I say, it's not when it's your neighbour, because you're like, my expectation with this guy, Warren, was that because you just think, oh, well, he lives near me, so he must have, one of them's nearly 10 years old, so he must have twigged by now. But he's, like most people, he's not interested in what his neighbour's doing. So it don't matter that the two 10-year-olds have always been running around in the courtyard for the last 10 years. He hasn't noticed. It's only when they're helping me vacuum out the car. That's what we were doing. Just remember what we were doing now. My wife had to go to a house that they're clearing out because her aunt's died, and she's offered to, no, she's not offered, she's become an executor, so she's having to do all sorts of stupid shit. But one of the things that she wanted to do was help gather up any crap that she might want from this house. So she says, can you clear the car out? I go out and outside, and it's a school day and we're clearing the car out. So that's why you're like, how come they're here cleaning the car out? Like, oh, right, they're homeschooled. That was it.
Well, there was, when they first started sending kids to school as a mandatory thing, first of all, it was built on the idea that to have a functional democracy or republic, that the population must be educated for that to be viable. But that moved on to having a standard by which you can judge that level of education. And that's what the public schools were supposed to fulfill, was that the bare minimum level. But it's constantly changed over the last 100 years,
Yeah, but those tests pigeonhole kids, John, you know that.
Yeah.
Those specific tests that they got to take, they pigeonhole kids. And that's what I liked about homeschool. Because we're like, well, they have to do tests. It's like, if you want them to, yeah. Well, how long do they have to? What do you mean, how long? Well, when I was in school, I had 45 minutes to do a test. He goes, you're not in school anymore. This is homeschool. You test them. Each kid is at a different level. You can't force one to be at another one's level. You teach them according to them.
Doing it because you want better for them. So if it came down to it and they forced me to test them, I would expect both of them to absolutely wipe the floor with your average school kid of the same age. I would expect them to be excelling. I would expect them to be doing better. Now, that expectation isn't foisted upon them, like, show me that you're doing better. It's just that is my natural expectation for having had two personal tutors hovering around them all day long, making sure that they're actually doing stuff. The amount of times I'm like, how come you've got your iPad? Did Mummy say you could have it? What are you doing on it? I'm not telling you off, Clover. I'm just making a hypothetical example. She's come in. She thinks I'm telling her off. That tells me she's got her iPad. She's just run in.
Yeah, but that was what
I want to
stopped
tell
my
you one
sister.
story about education. I was good in math in high school and in primary school. Very, very good in math. And I had a friend, and he was so bad in math. He could not understand shit, Nathan. You know? I was helping him. He forgetting everything tomorrow, nothing. He didn't finish even second of secondary. In our school, it's a little bit different, like in UK, but it's almost similar. Yeah, let's say second. That means not. He didn't finish the school. Now he go on with life. He married very young. He started to work like a building, like a builder, nothing like a helper there. Now he's making houses. He's making that arches. He's calculating. He knows better math than me. I'm sure. The guy who you will say this guy will never ever use math in his life. He will be totally stupid and he will not. That means education in high school didn't help him, but somehow he realized and somehow he teach himself to learn the math and to start to build the houses, for example.
Yeah, I'm probably doing quite well.
Everybody progresses at their own speed.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's what you said about homeschooling. That somehow now it's a pressure from the society, because you're strange. Somehow, how you will? Why are you going out from the society? What are you doing? You look somehow strange.
Yeah.
But
Why aren't you doing it like I'm doing it? It's like you've just spent 20 minutes moaning about how crap the school is and how they're neglecting your kid, but you're going to tell me that I'm strange for not doing that. Well, like I say, since COVID, people have started to be more critical of the school system that they've got their kids in and more admiring of people who go out of their way to teach their kids at home, because a lot of them who had kids during COVID were forced to homeschool temporarily.
Right. I homeschooled. The main thing was, go ahead, John. I'll go after you. I know you're trying to get in. Go ahead.
Yeah. See, I don't think whatever you choose for your kids, as long as you are giving it thought and thinking in the best interest of the child, you shouldn't be shamed either way.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous.
I wanted my kids. Here's the thing, too. I love that my kids were around me all day. A lot of people want to just drop their kids off. And that's fine if you want to do that. But I enjoyed my kids being around me. I know where they are. I know what's going on. I don't have to worry about if they're being abused in school, which a few of my brothers were growing up. But the main thing was we used to get a lot of pushback from my sister-in-law, my wife's sister, until the day we went over there. My son was face-to-face with their child, and my son was freaking way more advanced in freaking everything. All right? So you can't say nothing about homeschooling. Depends on what you're doing. If you're letting them just neglect it and not do anything, yeah, then it's going to be a fail. But if you're on it, they're doing it, they're completing what they need to complete, they're fine, socially and academically.
Well, the socially thing, they're just taking your cues from you instead of from other kids, right?
Well, they got to be around. Well, we would go to church or we would go, out. We would go out so they can mingle. So I understand that, but that was the big thing they threw at you. They're going to be social idiots. Really? So why are you worried about my kids?
Well, this is the big overarching point to it. It doesn't really matter how advanced they are when they're young, because they're always growing. They're always growing at their own speed. They will reach the level that they will attain because that is the level they will attain. Our interference with that is negligible, really, when it comes down to it.
When my oldest son was in school, I remember I think it was the third grade. I think I was living in Alabama at the time. They brought me in, and the teachers complaining to me about my son. I think it was something to do with a story she was reading. So I'm looking at this story, and it was so freaking boring. I said, "Let me tell you something. You see this story? I would have fell asleep on it too. But if you just managed to get a spider or a couple of spiders in this story, you would pique my son's interest, and he'd pay attention because he was into insects and bugs and shit like that, right?" So I was glad when my wife decided that since they're teaching our children evolution, she was totally against it. She did not want them learning evolution because we know it's bullcrap. So she took them out. I was like, okay, fine. And I'm glad she made that decision.
Can you mute, Sasha?
Can I,
Oh, go ahead.
I want to say something about, we're discussing about this, but did you have a feeling, Nathan, that especially flat earthers, who realize that Earth is flat, that means some light, that's big lie or something, and I need to start to teach my kids the truth, and maybe it's better. That's good if you can do it, but I have an opinion that people now think they must to do that, what is for me totally wrong, like why you should. We are all coming from the same society. We are all, public educated. We know the truth. That's not the problem. That means it not will be they will also learn something good in that schools. It's not that they will learn only bad things. But I only want to say it's a good thing that you can do that, and that's the beautiful thing. For example, I don't know if people think, for Nathan, your kids can wake up at 10 in the morning and start to learn at 11. Is that correct?
I mean, they don't. They're up at 6 o'clock or 5.
I know, but I'm only saying. But I cannot do that. I must wake up in the proper time, and she needs to be that time, in the morning there. Even maybe she doesn't want to be in that time. That's the beauty thing. Then break. She had a break, maybe 15 minutes. Your kid could have a break of 2 hours.
Oh yeah,
Sasha,
they
my
might get
kids don't
elongated
know
breaks.
what
But
day it is.
the bit I disagree with was the sentiment that I wanted to homeschool them so that I could educate them in something specific like flat Earth. That was not the intention. The intention was that they need to excel and we need to enjoy their company as children. That's to say, I want to see both of my daughters growing up and have an influence over them while they grow up, rather than the school system being their influence.
I have the same feeling, Nathan, because I'm not working. I'm doing this because I want to spend all my time with my family. And I can do that,
You know what the funny thing was? Like when you're going to school, I knew what day it was. I knew when it was Friday because it was Friday. My kids have no clue what day it is. They're going to say you're coming on the weekend because they don't revolve their day around. Well, I got to go to school Monday to Friday. I got to be up 7 o'clock in the morning. It could be a Saturday, and they have no clue.
That will be reflected upon later on when you have a set schedule that
Yeah, when it's time, they'll learn the days. Like my oldest son, he works now, so he knows when Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are. But you know what I'm saying? When you're in school, you know when Friday's coming.
I saw a skit about that on one of the videos I was watching, and there's this young, fresh-faced girl, and she's at the accounting firm, and she says to the other 2 employees, "Right, girls, well, I'll see you in 6 weeks. Have a great summer." And they're like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "Well, it's the end of July. It's summer break time." She's like, No, you don't get summer break when you're at work. You just work." She's like, "Well, what will I have to look forward to?" And then the one employee says, "Well, I got a rebate on my boiler. That was good." And the other one says, "Death."
The crazy thing about this homeschool thing, just to take it back to that for a second, is like it being turned into a moral decision when it was really kind of a logical decision to come up with a public school system, because the idea behind it is that you can't be an expert in everything, right? No one expects you to be, but you would want an expert teaching your child, right? And that was what the idea behind public school. Now it seems like the standards have slipped, and there's these problems that are, inherent within the system itself. I don't think the parent shaming aspect of it has ever been right. People saying you're weird because you want to homeschool your kids. No, that is what should be natural.
John, the schooling
But-
system was built for females, not for freaking males.
Right. When I was in the private school, the teachers in each class were experts, but it was a really expensive school that I went to. Now, that's something else I'll say to people when they start knocking schools. I'm like, I've got nothing against school. If I was rich, there's a good chance both of them would be in a private school and they'd be getting taught by experts. But in private schools, you're taught things that are within the expertise of the individual that's teaching the class. So therefore, you get a different education in a private school. That's why it costs the money. But, I found out after the fact that people weren't taught the trivium. They weren't taught logic. They weren't taught primary source research. A lot of the things that I was disciplined in the private school is definitely not what you're taught in a normal school. Far from it. But that is because there's a curriculum. The state have decided what they'll be taught in. And the teacher is following the syllabus. They're not following their own plan in terms of what they feel is necessary to teach that kid in that particular circumstance. And they're certainly not teaching the kids autonomy in terms of research skills. But that's certainly what a private school education afforded me. The teacher would come in at the start of the lesson, give you a general idea of what you'd be doing, and then they'd bugger off. You'd be like, left in the class on your own. You're like, well, when they came back and they're like, well, where did you go and look for the material to find out the answers to these questions? And then they'd explain how you'd go out and research. When they came back, they wouldn't tell you off because you hadn't achieved anything. They'd be like, well, the reason you haven't achieved anything is because you don't know how to go out and do the type of research. You know what I mean? In other words, they'd address what was achieved in the couple of hours that you were left to your own devices, having been set a task or educated in a certain aspect of something that then required you to proactively do something after the fact. That is definitely not how your ordinary class gets done. I mean, I remember when that school shut down, having to go to a normal high school, and it was a real shock. You're all sat in lines, looking at a blackboard. You're like, this is fucking weird. What's all this about? And then you try and answer a question that was posed, and you were told to shut up. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
This is weird. This is not what I'm used to.
But they had those class, like what you're describing with the private education, they have that in public schools as well. But remember, you're talking about society, and there has to be people who are generally educated enough that they can live up to societal norms. But does it really help the guy that's going to be pushing a button all day to know, how I'm trying to think of something obscure, so there's different levels within the structure of public school that deals with higher education within all classrooms. There's the baseline that moves us a set rate. There's gifted and resource classes that deal with the outliers and people who learn quicker. So if you didn't get that treatment in school, it was because they arbitrarily decided that you weren't capable of handling it.
Right.
That sucks. You know what I mean? But that's
Yeah.
how it is.
No, I totally get it.
Like I learned logic and reason in middle school. And I say that to most people, and they're like, no, they never taught that. Yeah, they did. But I had a different experience than they did.
I learned logic.
Yeah, I didn't get logic until I took an elective in college. There was no logic before that.
I learned logic and reason on the streets.
Yeah, you learnt cause and effect.
Yeah.
You learned.
You don't pay this freaking bookie, your legs are gonna get broken.
I was about to
So
say, you
logically,
took the words
I'm
out of my
gonna
mouth.
get that
I was
money.
about to say, you learn, fuck around and find out.
Exactly. There's a lot of logic and reasoning going on there, boy.
I hate defending public school too, you know. I hate having to defend any position. But, you know, there's whatever, I guess it comes down to the parent more than it does the child. Whatever's best for you, you do it. But, you know, always keep the child in the forefront of your decisions you make, and you can't go wrong with it. You know what I mean?
I wanted my kids in eye shot of me. Once my wife started this, then I was like an animal with it, because now I got used to them being around, and I got used to being, able to like watch everything that's going on. Where when they were in school, you're blind. I don't care what you say. You're blinded for 8 hours of what's going on with your child.
When I go to sleep, I'm also blinded with what happens with my kids.
What happened?
Does that mean I should stop sleeping?
No. Stop it. When you go to sleep, your kids are going to sleep. What I'm saying is you're putting your trust in somebody else for 8 hours. Now, if they're in a good school and you feel comfortable, that's fine. I noticed I didn't, but I did notice that I could work to my advantage. You guys mess around, I'm sending you to military school. Then they would get their work done.
Well, no, it's because society's built on trust. You know what I mean? Like, there's a certain level of trust that you got to have.
You want to hear
in
some of
order-
the shit that happened to my brothers in school? Would you really want me to break
understand
down
that.
some of the shit that happened to them?
I understand that. And I
Schools
understand
have totally
why you're-
changed from the 70s and 80s when I went to school to, let's say, the mid 90s and late 90s. It changed for the worse in the public schooling systems in New York. Trust me when I tell you.
Well, see, I didn't have that experience either. So, like, I can understand where you're coming from, but it's a shame because there is a certain level, because without trust of your neighbor and the ability to, be able to turn your back on them without worrying about being stabbed or robbed, something like that, you have to have an overriding, pervasive authority move in to maintain safety. Having faith in your neighbor is what keeps, governments from getting out of hand.
When it comes to my kids, I have faith in me, my wife, and our relatives. Now, there are some friends that I wouldn't trust them with, but nah, not the way. Things are a lot different, man. Way different than they were like when I was going to school. Just why take the chance? Why leave it open? Do you realize that? Let me tell you this. There's some kids, like Nathan was saying, a lot of people homeschool their kids because they wanted to abuse their kids, let's say. All right, so they can't, so they send them to school. You got kids that are being abused in certain ways, and what happens to the kid that is abused? He goes to school and he does the abusing, right? So that's a lot of faith and trust you have in your neighbor. No, I don't.
Yeah. Well, see that, because of those people now, because of the abusers, we're going to invite an entity into our homes, basically, to get that person under control. That's what happens when faith completely breaks down between people.
Oh, they dropped the
And that's
freaking
something
ball. It
we
was
have to
very
do.
easy. Hold on, it's very easy to do. When they're going to school, I mean, you can't. All right, you can't have. I'm not even going to get into it. Just forget it.
I ain't making an argument against public schools.
No. I know, but I don't even want to get into what I'm going to get into because it's not good. So just forget it. We'll move on. Just that shit I got to freaking deal with, and I didn't know that was going on. You know, and if I would have known what was going on, I'd have fucking took a flamethrower to that school.
I'm sure. Like, and I'd say it probably happens everywhere too, and that's the shame of it. You know, because something that was made to be good and helpful and had all the intentions in the right place has been turned into this malicious instrument. Because
Okay, I'll give you this. Why would you have an 8th grader having to use the bathroom the same time as 2nd graders using the bathroom? You tell me why. That's something that they can rectify, right?
Yeah. What?
Why is an 8th grader able to use the bathroom the same time as 2nd or 3rd graders using the bathroom? That should never be, right?
Well, really,
Yeah,
it
it
should be
is.
that anybody can use the bathroom when they need to. I don't know what age has to do with this. What?
I was just about to say that. Why would you... describing them as 8th graders is a stereotype based on a number that's described based on how many years they've been on the plane of Earth's surface. It's like, well, if I think of some of the homeschool classes, the teachers have got no rules and they learn that pretty quick. So they can put whichever kids they like in whatever group they like. So in one of the classes, at one point, Clover and her older sister and a 14-year-old were all in the same group. Why? Because they were all about the same level in art. Did it matter?
You're missing what the frick I'm saying. Just leave it. You know what? I said let's leave it there, leave it there. Use your imagination at some things that can happen. And then you tell me.
I don't know.
Well, I tell you what, I bet you it would be in a situation where society has perpetuated the idea that if you are to inform an authority that someone is being assaulted, that's tattletelling. I bet you that's the kind of fucking environment that would produce. Is that what you're talking about?
Not a very simple thing. If someone's in the 3rd grade, there's a certain time the 3rd grade is going to use the bathroom, and it's not going to be when there's a teenager in the bathroom at the same time. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to leave the door open for that teenager to abuse that other kid. And they dropped the ball there.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, but it shouldn't have happened to begin with. And it happened with all the other kids from both classes in there, and nothing was done. I think that was probably more of the problem.
Well, it isn't. It's you said it earlier, actually, John. You said, well, when you maybe you didn't actually say it, but you alluded to it. When you've got your kids taking their lead from other kids, it's like, why would I expect another 8-year-old in my kid's class full of 8-year-olds to offer some sort of morality or moral compass to my 8-year-old? You know, they're not gonna, because they haven't learned one. So who has to give them that? Well, you should be the first person to give it them as a parent. And in my humble opinion, you can't let the blind lead the blind. And that's what you do when you shove 35 kids in the same room and have a person at the front sip coffee and tell them to be quiet. It's like, yeah, but what about the rest of the time when they're interacting with that other group of 34 other 8-year-olds that have got no idea how to behave in a decent way, how to talk properly, how to respect others and their religious beliefs? They're not going to learn any of that from the other kids around them, and that's who they're actually in the company of while they learn how to be factory workers.
Well, that's because the parent isn't doing their job, because whether you send them to public school or not, whether they they're homeschooled or not, If you don't teach them morality, if you don't show them how to be empathetic, it's just not going to happen.
Right.
So monsters can be formed in any way. The people that don't become monsters, it's probably because their parents, whether they were homeschooled or in school, held them to some standard of morality.
Well, I'm going to protect my kids from the monsters. I'm not letting them near anywhere where a potential monster could get them.
That is literally anywhere.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
While they're young, I'm talking about. At that age, while they're young, I'm not. Especially when I had my daughters. That's freaking crazy.
Right. What you mean by better phraseology is when you are aware there are monsters around, you will exclude your family from being around those monsters, right?
That's correct.
Not when there's any opportunity, because that's everywhere. Like 1 in 20 people are psychopaths. That's just how it is. So out in society, there's a good chance that at any given moment you're going to have a monster in your near vicinity.
Not at 8 years old, they're not. They're going to be with me. I'm responsible for them to a certain age. When they hit 18, then they got to be able to fight their monsters. Not saying I won't be there.
Sure. And as a responsible parent, you need them to be aware, and sometimes, and you need to, sometimes put them in circumstances where there are monsters, so they can see what the monsters are. So when it comes to monsters with my kids, right, I explain this regularly because I'm like you with daughters. You're especially concerned that they're going to get into a situation that they can't do anything about. Well, you have to point out to them, or I do regularly, that monsters just look like everyone else, right? So they're really difficult to spot. Quite often, they'll be more smiley and happier than the people who aren't monsters. You know what I mean? So it's a really hard lesson to teach a young kid that the people who are offering you the sweets, because that's the only example we used to get in school. If somebody's offering you sweets from the back of a van or asking you to see a little puppy, in other words.
Shoot, I got a good one with that. I tried that with my daughters, and it's like I said to my younger daughter, I said, if somebody pulled up, I'm in the house, you're outside, and you just, you're roller skating, and a guy pulls up and he says he's holding a puppy, and he says he has 7 more in the back. Do you want one? I said, what are you going to do? She goes, oh, I'm going to take one. I'm like, no, you can't take one. There's no 7 puppies in the back. He's going to get you over to that car and throw you in there, and I'll never see you again.
Right, so you want the kid to understand that when somebody's offering them sweets, that they're probably the bad guy. When there's someone saying, do you want to come and fuss this puppy, that the chances are that they're going to bundle you in the back of the van with them.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. These conversations that we're having about monsters, though, aren't, I don't know, it seems non sequitur to the conversation about the morality of your kids attending public over private schools. And I don't, it seems a bit non sequitur to say that because there's a place that monsters exist, therefore it's at school.
No, that's not really my point. My point was that if you're expecting to get a really refined moral compass or education of any kind, when the majority of the people that are being influential to your kid are other kids, because that's the majority of the people that they're around. In other words, if you're in a class full of 35 kids, they're all going to be they're not the best influence on your kid when it comes to learning lessons. You are.
Right. And that's your responsibility as a parent. And school doesn't alleviate you having a responsibility as a parent.
Yeah, but John, southern schools are a lot different than schools up north. Believe me when I tell you. The schooling system, I was amazed how the schooling system ran in Alabama as opposed to New York. A lot less kids. Well, I'm not saying every school, but the school my son was in, a lot less kids, maybe 10 kids to the class. And they really kept an eye on them. Like, there was no wandering where a smaller kid can be in the company of an older kid. So down south, it's a lot different. Up north, it's a
Yeah,
free,
you know-
free for all.
Right. And that's probably why I'm speaking differently about it, because my experience isn't the same. Like this talk of predatory monsters and all this is like so far removed from my experience that I just have no way to even think about what you're talking
Up
about.
north, up north, I'll give you two schools: Franklin K. Lane, John Adams, Grover Cleveland. They were freaking monsters everywhere, and if you couldn't freaking navigate, you were gonna get consumed. There's freaking 40 kids to a class. I mean, it's a freaking horror show.
I will say this, because COVID caused a lot of people to flee the north and come down south. I've run into, it seems as if a lot more problems that I don't remember dealing with when I was in school. You know what I mean?
There you go.
But I'm not going to give up, because I would rather them assimilate to how we behave than us change our behavior because of them.
Well, that's the hope. When people come from north to the south, that was my hope. That, you know what, we're going to assimilate because I like the way it's being done down south as opposed to up north. So it'll happen. I mean, you're in Tennessee though. You're in like that's a little more commercial than Alabama, no?
Yeah. I mean, really, the area that I live in Tennessee, Northeast Tennessee, has more doctorates per capita than anywhere else in the world.
I'm not really
It's
following
like
along with this conversation, so you'll have to fill me in. Just one question. Why would somebody move from the north to the south because of COVID? Just break that down for me. I don't really understand.
The larger population centers, people thought that if they went to more rural, I can't say that word, areas, the danger was lessened because, less people, less chances of getting sick.
Not only that,
wow.
I'll tell you why. Not just that. With COVID, a lot of people that felt that there's going to be something else dropping down the line, and I'm not going to get bottlenecked up here in the north. I'm heading to the south now because the
Not
south
only
has a
that.
different way of thinking.
Not only that, it was better, Nathan, to be in UK than in Italy in that time
Why?
because of rules.
Because of what?
Of rules of the COVID.
Because of the rules of
In
COVID.
Italy, oh my God! In Italy it was terrible. It was incredibly terrible. There was pressure to do stuff like, I don't know. There was losing really for example, the kids, teenagers was good in swimming. They could not go to train anymore swimming because they needed to get it,
Oh, you're
and
talking
stuff
about
like
the
that.
schooling system.
And but not only that, all other rules of Italy was stopped. I was in Italy after that when we stopped in March. We stopped it first in UK in March. We went in July. It still was there, the rules of COVID. 4 months later, for example. And that's only one country. It depends of experience where we lived. Somebody from Serbia had, for example, even worse experience during that time. You was beaten up from police because you was walking, I don't know, at 10 in the evening.
Yeah,
And that
I
didn't
moved down
happen
to-
in UK, at least here. I didn't feel that. It was a lot of stupid rules also, but it didn't happen. Some kind of pressure. What happened in some other countries, for example. The same thing is in USA. You had some countries where was practically freedom to walk, and you had some countries, my God, you could not breathe.
I was in New
that's
York during
exactly
COVID, but
it,
I
Sasha.
was upstate. I was upstate New York. So it was different than the city, but I didn't change anything I'd done. But I did move down south a few years ago because when shit does hit the fan, I don't want to be anywhere near the northern states.
Now,
see, like,
Belarusia, they didn't have COVID. Do you know that?
yeah, they didn't.
They didn't
But
have
it's a
it.
cultural difference between the North and the South in the United States. Like my
Florida
friend
didn't.
Neil lives literally like 45 minutes from me. We live in the exact same area, more or less. And I have a bunch of friends that are still in Massachusetts. And when COVID was going on, like they were telling me how like if they didn't have a mask on, they would get kicked out of Walmart and people would like pretty much start mobbing them. But in the South, that won't happen because you start like pushing people around like that in public over something they are or aren't wearing. People, it's going to be a little hyperbolic, but people in the South are more cautious because everyone's carrying firearms and stuff. So you can't really behave like that. You can't just start mobbing people in a store, you know, because the old lady might get scared and pull out a revolver out of a purse and shoot you in the
Yeah,
face.
you get shot.
I mean, I hate to say it like that, but it's true.
%100% correct.
There is
Different
that,
way of
yes.
living down south.
Yeah, and that I don't want that to change, but like, and part of my experience was school. Like I
Down
hate to
south.
take that from.
I knew one deck was going to say something about up north and down south.
As it relates to a map.
Let's say,
You're-
hold on, John, I got this. We're talking one deck. I have my map on the wall, and I'm looking at it eye level with the wall. So moving from New York to Alabama, I did have to go down according to the map on the wall.
The map's upside down.
It should have been up. Is that what you're saying?
Well, you'd have to read it by the way the words on it read for it to be upside down.
No, you need to put it flat on the table. Then you can read it properly.
Yeah, but I'm looking flat at the table, right? Here's Alabama. I'm looking straight at it. New York is to my right. Alabama is to the left. And I have to say down because my hand is going down. Now I put it on the wall and it's doing the same thing.
That's your local up and down and left and right, right?
I don't know. How you want to phrase it? Listen, I don't live on a ball. I live on a flat earth. I could say up and down if I want to.
Yeah, the floor's below the ceiling, but if you was actually on the terrain in real life on that map, you wouldn't be going down. You'd be just traveling a horizontal.
I'd be going
direction.
across.
You're getting really close to a reification fallacy, buddy.
I would be
Careful.
going. Hold on, from New York to Alabama. What would I be going? Southwest, right?
Yes.
Okay, so is that the language you guys want us to start using? You
I'm not
flat earth
changing
fundies. You flat earth fundies. I moved from New York. I went southwest to Alabama. I could do a nasally voice and sound just as nerdy as a flat earther. I freaking lived up north in New York and I moved down south because the way of living is better down here. Sweet home Alabama, where skies are so blue. That's correct.
I wouldn't say it's better. I think Alabama sucks in a lot of ways compared to the North. It's really backwards.
I don't know where you're at.
I wouldn't
You gotta
say
come
it's
up to
better
the
at all.
college town.
The culture itself
move
is a little
south.
better.
You got to move
You have more of
closer
a
to
fake
Auburn.
politeness.
Yeah, but you're not close enough to the college. You got to get closer to the college. It's like having your little touch of the North and the South, because you have in the college you have all different flavors there, and this city is run by the
Any urban
college.
area. I just
As
know that
As Auburn
there's
University
poverty.
goes, so goes the town.
Right, but all I'm saying is, growing up in New England, I didn't move to Alabama till 2011 when I was 21 years old. And I was shocked by there were certain types of poverty I didn't know existed in the United States till I came down here. People without doors on their houses and shit. It was insane. It's like
And
there's
you
some
didn't see
parts that
that
look
in
like a
New
third
England?
world country. Huh?
Listen, I seen it in Brooklyn. Don't talk about doors. I'll show you whole houses with no windows, doors, and where freaking drug addicts took it over. And it became shooting galleries. It's all over the place. There was a time when freaking the Bronx was burning. There was nothing to the South Bronx.
Yeah.
But I know what you're saying. There's a poverty here. It's a different type of poverty than we're used to seeing up north. Because I could go a few blocks away from here and be like, holy shit, what is this?
Yeah. Yeah. But COVID was definitely easier where we live than it was for people who were still in the Metro Boston area at the time. It was just the mindset and the culture, not the culture, but like, I hate to say it, it's like the left-right paradigm. People in a more leftist area tended to spaz out more and be way more like authoritarian about certain things than it was in the South. Whereas in the South, it's pretty much like, leave me the F alone, I'm going to do what I want. And
can you imagine down south a stranger telling you to put something on your face, but you were getting that up north?
Oh, like I said, if you were getting that up north, you would get physically confronted by groups of people. They would start screaming at you, but you can't, like that really can't happen down here. People are way more cautious about how they approach strangers they don't know because 9 out of 10 times people are carrying here. Because that's just a cultural norm to be raised on firearms and have 30 firearms in your house from the time you were born to the time you're 90. That's just how the South is. Whereas up north, it's not quite like that.
Well, the thing is, though, like I had someone approach me in public and tell me to put a mask on when COVID was going on. And I explained to them that, their understanding of what wearing the mask does is pretty, pretty sad if I'm even having to explain this to you. And they left me alone. You know what I mean?
I would just tell them I don't take unsolicited medical advice from cashiers.
I would just try to ring up the stuff as fast as I could. Go to the self-checkout and try to do it as quick as I can and get out.
It's funny though, talking about COVID. Just a quick one. I was just in work today in one of the shops. I was fixing the refrigeration unit. A lady in there, called Bev, and her partner's recently bought an old van, and they're trying to convert it to a camper van. So she was just telling me about that, and she's been showing me photographs of it and how they're getting on. And then she got on to talking about, I don't know, it came up. It was like, oh, I'd love to be able to do something like that and convert a van. And she got on to, in COVID, we did this in the garden, and we built this bar out of pallets, and we built some garden furniture in COVID. So we got onto COVID, and it progressed to, I said, I was well against all that, blah. I said I went on protests and everything like that. Did you not have the? I said, no, I didn't have any injections and everything like that. I said, like I said, I protested it quite strongly at the time. And then what was the next thing?
You went on protest?
Yeah, but then it was like, because it's recently news about the royal family and Andrew and and all this, that got brought up, and I said, I said the royal family. I said I was telling people about that bloody royal family. 4 years ago, we're getting called a conspiracy theorist, and now look at the news. And then the next thing was, because we talk about, the next question was, are you one of them that believes the earth is flat? And it was just a legitimate conversation.
way.
I know this lady. Yeah, honest to God, it was like a pure, what we've been talking about just happened in real life. Like, talked about COVID not being real, going on protest, the royal family, and Jimmy Savile going into the palace. And I said I've been talking about this years ago and about conspiracy theories. And she asked me, did I think the earth was flat? I said, well, it's funny you should say that. I said, I have looked into that as well. I didn't go into pure. I said, I have looked into that as well. I said, and the conclusion I come to at the end, and what I still think is that it's measured that way. I said, we've got sea level, which is level, and that's where all the mapping comes from. I said, if you read some documents and look into it, aeroplanes, they have to treat the earth as flat and stationary. I said, so she went, yeah, I know what you mean. But then she went, yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. But, you know, I always think, well, unless it's affecting me, I don't have to really worry about anything like that unless it's affecting me. And that was the conversation I had this morning.
Check it out.
This morning.
I've done this with one of the younger guys at work because he brought up flat Earth in kind of the same way, you know. And I said, well, I'm not one of those idiot flat earthers that thinks levels curving. I mean, could you imagine being so stupid as to think that, you know, a level line is bent? And they're like, they all started like, he started laughing with me. And I was like, yeah, boy, you didn't think about that at all, did you, big guy?
Oh, it, so one deck, I'm right. Talk about conspiracies.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, flat Earth comes up.
Yep. Yeah. And it happened in real life today. Just natural, just a conversation I've had with. I know this person. It's just a person who works in the store. You know, a lady, and we have a little chat now and again. And like you say, and I thought, bloody hell, there you go. A couple of conspiracy theory sort of topics. And next question: are you one of those that thinks the Earth's flat? She didn't say anything.
So flat Earth, it's because they made flat Earth a conspiracy. Yeah. Very good. Nice job, whoever the powers that be are.
Victory Royale!
Nathan, your microphone clipped or my internet went out.
No, it's me with a groggy voice. I said Victory Royale.
When you get a chance, look at the private message I sent you in Teams, Nathan. You're gonna have a right laugh at that.
You want to read it out, or I'm going to end the show?
I don't care. I just sent it to you because I thought it was hysterical.
Think I should be reading off air?
Yeah, it's no big deal. You could read it on air, off air. It just shows you where these people are at.
Fair enough. We'll save it for Monday then. After I'll give you my reaction then, because with that I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's after show possible. And of course a massive thank you to all of you for liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley and I will see you all in the next video.
But when you measure it flat, it contradicts that. I'm spitting flat facts and that. And I know you don't like that. Google Maps is flat, it presents elevation profiles like that. I'm a spitting flat earth king. Sentence has a ring, doing my own thing. If Earth was a big roast chicken, factually finger licking chicken. We just got the measurements missing. I'm spitting eggs and vegs, begging the question lesson. I've said it before, time after time. I'm the spitting flat earth king of rhyme.